So what I wanted to present and what I want to talk about is a lot of stuff, but it has to do with where we are going individually and collectively as a collective consciousness in the earth. I want to talk about what kind of things we're going to see happen in the likely near future. And as it relates to our evolving and developing spirituality and sense of self and what we have the ability to do as consciously aware beings. And as you can see, well, this is a little intro for what we're going to talk about. Yes, it involves extraterrestrials, and what that is, and what that how that phenomenon relates to the overall metaphysical and spiritual structure of reality and our conscious awareness, and how we can interface with what that is. So I have myself had experiences with extraterrestrials. I will talk some about that, just to sort of give you an idea of what's out there, but I did a whole video on my channel, actually. I'm going to do what I can to re-upload what I talked about today onto my channel and edit it and everything so we don't lose any information or whatever. But we'll get into this. So I did it a while ago. I don't think I let anybody know. I didn't particularly advertise it because I wanted to wait until we were all together to sort of really be able to talk about all these things at once. Anyway, so I'm calling this our spiritual transition because that is the what we individually and collectively as a humanity are going through right now, and it is accelerating very quickly. So we'll talk about how to know, how it is that we can know these things for ourselves. And some of this stuff might be concepts we've heard before, as we've talked about them here. I just want to get it on video, etc. But I do believe a lot of this stuff will be new. So for example, we talked about meditation, etc., but I want to go into that a little bit. Spiritual growth and what that means, and how we can do that. We've been participating in that process, but it is just more specifics I want to talk about this process as we move through this transition, because our ability to do that is going to be very important. Always has been. So spiritual growth, meditation and awareness, energy and spirituality. So we've talked about, used the word energy, etc. many times. I don't want to go into more specifically what that is, and then give you some examples of what that looks like. And if you know what you're looking for on YouTube, you can find some real stuff. And we will take a look at a couple of examples. The planes of reality. So we recently started talking about the Akashic field, or the Akashic plane, or the Akashic consciousness, or the Akashic records, is how they're generally known. That is a real component of this metaphysical and spiritual structure of reality itself. As the material plane is one such experience, the Akashic records exist on another plane, and we'll talk about what that means. It is another layer, for lack of a better term, of vibration and energy. Not specifically the Akashic records necessarily, but other planes of reality we interact with every single night when we go to sleep. Well, I shouldn't say every single night because you don't necessarily have to, but it is guaranteed that at some point during your life while you sleep, you are recalling experiences that you have in other planes. And we'll talk about what that is. And then, of course, extraterrestrials. So these are part of the sort of group of quote-unquote far out there concepts that I was exposed to, at this point, 12, 15 years ago. But, and I'll explain, whenever you learn something new or it sounds far out or whatever, you hold it in consideration, and you don't necessarily need to immediately, absorb it or whatever. And that goes for everything I speak about. I'm getting ahead of myself anyway. But anyway, so those are the main topics I want to cover, along with videos, examples, and then there's, depending on how long this goes, we can take a break, there's endless amounts of stuff I can show you. Okay, so how to know these things. So any of these things related to spirit, the planes of reality, etc. So as we have said, meditation, but meditation and contemplation on your experience and introspection are the means by which you can experientially interface with any of these things that we speak about. Experience is the real teacher, regardless of whatever source you may come across, whatever you may hear. It is your experience that you contemplate and explore that is the thing that lets you know, capital K, that what you are interacting with is a component of reality. So experience is the real teacher, and you can then extrapolate from your experience to help you discern the truth concerning any new information, etc., that you encounter. So, meditation and experience, of course, information sources that you come across on the internet, whatever, also good, but it is the experience that allows you to discern whether or not what you come across is worthy of consideration. So, metaphysical and spiritual resources, videos, books, etc., are all possible, of course, but I will not be presenting anything here today that I have not experienced myself or something that resonates deeply with me as a result of extrapolating from my own experience and contemplation. Like I said, that includes ETs. So, I will be using and quoting from a source called The Law of One, which I mentioned a couple times, because, in my opinion, and experience, that is one of the best. It's more metaphysical and philosophical than purely spiritual, but those are two sides of the same coin. The best metaphysical, spiritual, philosophical resource that exists, especially for this current time period of transition that humanity is going through. And I've mentioned this before. There's no. It 100% immediately gets quote-unquote far out there within 10 seconds of reading it. It talks about UFOs, extraterrestrials, etc. Because those are all real components of what we collectively in the United States and humanity as a whole are going to be learning about and dealing with in the very near future. So, generally speaking, the majority of Americans probably already think that are fine with the idea of there being extraterrestrials and stuff, but actually maybe not the majority, but I would say a significant portion of the country is just like fine with this concept. But it is going to be made real to us in a variety of ways, I believe, in the very near future, for a variety of motivations behind this kind of thing. My point with all this is that it will continue to break down, and the proverbial they are going to offer things in order to attempt to make up for that gap, make up for that instability. And we'll talk about this later. One of the things they'll offer is the idea that aliens, quote unquote, are here to invade. I don't know if it'll get that explicit, but that is part of what is sort of planned. Society collapsing everything, they're going to be like, oh, it's the aliens. Pay attention to us, give us all the money, give us all the power, etc. That's a simplified way of explaining what I think will actually happen, but we'll talk about that. But my point with this is your own experience, investigating your own self, and holding in consideration things that we learn and hear is necessary for making sense of all these things we're about to sort of see collectively happen. It's necessary for making sense of your own experience in any case, in any time period. Like, you wait for something to resonate very strongly with you, and then you weigh it against your experience, you weigh it against your sources, your information, etc. And in that way, you can discern what is, to the best of your ability, real versus what is propaganda. Okay? So as I was saying, this sort of dissolving of the framework is both potentially positive and negative. It's positive in that if you have been operating under an illusion, how we think society works, who and what we think runs this, that illusion can be dissolved itself. And it's potentially negative in that once your sense of what is real, how you think society works, etc., breaks down, another illusion can be provided to you. As I just mentioned, the aliens are coming, but that's just, a dramatic example.
I read something that came to mind. Johnny the Clock. said that ignorance is not the opposite of, is not the enemy of knowledge. The enemy of knowledge is the illusion of knowledge. I thought that was profound, especially when, yeah.
That makes sense. Ignorance is just a state of knowledge. Yeah. But if someone's actively trying to flip it in the other direction,
yes, that came to mind because of my thoughts about Christianity, the illusion of spirituality.
So that is where us sort of collectively in the earth, particularly in this room, who desire to return to balance must be there to assist vibrationally and energetically to make sure that the people pick up on during this time period of turmoil, whatever form it takes, that what people pick up on is the seed of light that sets a positive direction for humanity overall. And we've been talking about this all this time. But what we're talking about is in the law of one. So we're picking up on what is going on. New information need not be taken at face value immediately, but held in consideration until such a time that it leaves a deep enough impression on you, weighed against your own experience, and that includes everything I say here today. That includes everything you read in Law 1 or wherever else. That includes what you're going to see on the news, which we will take a look at. An impression is something is made on us. It is something that resonates with us, something that we encounter that vibrates in tune with a deeper place in our own sense of being, a place that is already aware of these things, though we are not consciously able to access that for various reasons. So it is the task of anyone learning how to grow spiritually to learn how to consciously journey into the nature of the self. Step by step, little by little, more and more, to experientially interface with those things which we have consciously forgotten. Things that are within us and things that are, we've forgotten them basically because of the shock of this physical material experience and everything that we experience while here. The evolving experiences that you have as you journey deeper into the self are what allow you to resonate, are what allows that which resonates in the above to take residence in the below, in a process that ultimately unites the two. So as above, so below. The spiritual journey is a process of uniting the above and the below.
So in order for it to take resonance in the below, you have to first of all embrace it. If I hear it, right, and I don't understand it, and because I don't understand, I close my mind to it. Janice hears it. She doesn't understand it. But her not understanding it does not necessarily mean she closes her mind to it. She wants to understand it. It resonates with her. With me, because I'm holding on to Christianity, it doesn't resonate with me. So it's garbage in my mind because it doesn't resonate with me. So if in order for something to resonate with you, you have to not only desire it, but you have to embrace those things about it that you don't necessarily understand. Makes sense?
Does.
It's the same thing, it's the same word for embracing
To
be open? Is being open to the same as embracing, or is embracing the stronger?
I would say that, yeah. You be open to it before you embrace it.
Okay.
And you embrace it when you realize that you are it.
Because what you say doesn't change people. What changes people's emotions is what they embrace.
So how do you hold it in consideration? Is that what y'all are describing?
Yeah, you learn about it. You hear about it, you don't necessarily need to try to force yourself to believe it or whatever.
Just true.
Okay.
Just recognize it as a possibility and then feel how you feel.
Okay.
And we're
Doesn't
talking
that
about,
also provoke a desire to do more research and find out more?
It
It
should.
does. If it doesn't, then did you really embrace it, or did it really resonate?
Or are you really interested?
Yeah, if it doesn't create a harm.
Okay.
And that's fine. Like you just feel for whatever it is you feel. Right?
But let me say this, if I may.
Hmm.
That's more prevalent with those who are in a space where they teach. And don't get me wrong, all teachers are students. But all students are not teachers. So you cannot possibly be a teacher if something doesn't resonate so deeply with you until it pushes you to desire to know more about it.
Yeah.
Either by your research or talking to somebody that you gain more knowledge of or understand.
Yeah. And the law board, I like it. It says whenever it talks about teaching or learning, it's those two words are always the same. It says teach learning, because those are not separate things. Like you become the channel through which you express what it is that you learn, because those, well, yeah, learning and teaching is the same. You learn from your own higher self as you teach others, and you learn from those you teach how to better be connected and all kinds of things. So.
And everyone in this room or that room as well, with you all have experienced that just with foundation in terms of teaching and having something, as Nick said, in terms of feeling like you actually are channeling something, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that was in me. I don't know where that actually came from. But it's like the solution of what needs to be said is said. And you feel like I've never even thought of this consciously or said this today in my life, and it just came so effortlessly, and I had so much confidence that I didn't just know it. I definitely understood and saw like just how real this particular thing was.
Thank you. So I have here, hopefully you can see that. Shoot. Leave you back up some.
Oh yes, and I'm also following along with the slide.
Oh, you got it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll talk about energy and vibration and stuff, but in terms of how the above and the below interact, it is through vibration, frequency, and feeling. And what we call feeling is the qualitative aspect of vibration and frequency. So the words, there's no best words to describe the nature of consciousness, but frequency and vibration are pretty good. So when we start talking about the astral, your astral body and the astral plane, that is a sort of plane of existence that exists on another frequency or in another range of vibration than this material stuff does.
We talk about above and below. As above, so is below. Our mindset cannot be that as above, so is below is separate. Because it's not talking about a separate entity or space from us. It's talking about what we're not aware of.
Yes.
It's talking about a spiritual elevation, as we would talk about when Moses went to the mountain of Jesus, that kind of thing. That the above is I think probably spirit is more beyond than it is above.
Yeah.
More beyond our awareness.
Yeah.
Than it would be above and below.
So there's no best way to describe it. It's like, and it's definitely not the case where it's like right up there or below there. These are distinctions in awareness that determine what you perceive, where your awareness is focused, where you vibrate, and what your frequency is determines what you interact with. So everything we're talking about, the astral, whatever, is here right now. It is the nature of our awareness that determines whether or not we can interact with it and use it. Well, know ourselves, I should say, to the benefit of others and ourselves.
So it's like our consciousness then, through resonance and vibration, we feel our needs. And so like your tuning fork example there,
Yeah.
at 128 hertz, it reminds the body, the physical body, of what it once could do from a conscious level. And so, like, you know, when we did the, when we talked about the vibrations and how sand shifts into the various kinds of, forms, same kind of thing. So the as above, so below is simply reminding this physical entity of its vibrational and its alignment with vibrational and resonance at a universal level.
Mhm.
Is that the same kind of concept?
Absolutely. And I put those two reports, I didn't even see the numbers on the two reports. The numbers don't matter. But let me just, so when you talk about the sand, you put a particular frequency on it and make those designs of the sand, which is called cymatics. It's the sort of study of doing that stuff. That is why the chakras look like that, because they are geometrical representations of a particular vibration. So have you ever seen, if you have one tuning fork over here and you hit it, and there's another tuning fork over here that is tuned to it, it will also start vibrating.
Yeah.
Imagine that same concept as a chain from the above
Well, that's what I was thinking, that
into the below.
the above is the crown and the below is the.
It is. So, but, and that's the thing. So there are the planes of reality. There are literally an infinite number of them nested within each other. So within the context of this physical experience, the thing that resonates in your physical experience with the highest of the high is the crown. Well, is the crown.
So when Barbara talks about the lower vibration, and the scripture talks about someone's rights, and you have lowered yourself below that of the angels, right? So if we are not resonating with the universe, then what it's actually saying is that you, by virtue of not resonating with the universe, you have lowered yourself. You are below the message. In other words, you're less than the message that you were created to be. Mm-hmm. You have made yourself less than, as opposed to, because what you're doing, you're resonating with the vibration of the chaos in the earth. And that in itself lowers you. But it is not the creator who lowers you. It is your choices that lowers you. And that is, I do believe, one of the reasons that maleness is so hard to reach, as we were talking about earlier, because males actually resonate at a lower frequency than females because of the attitude, because of the desire to be one with the system, the environment that we live in. Men are more apt to want to be European in mindset than are women. And that is why we resonate at a lower vibration than we should. And I'm not talking about individual, of course. I'm not painting everybody with the same brush, but I'm talking about in generally speaking. That's what we are. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yes, we are. Any questions about that? Because this is,
and we'll talk about what the vibration and energy and what that feels like.
Yeah.
It is the entire process and the spiritual journey to learn how to vibrate with the higher while in the context of the low, so that you become a lighthouse.
as a servant.
A servant.
Yeah.
The law of one describes, well, the adept is the servant. The highest form of being present here in the physical experience is to be the servant of all. So that you become the channel through which other people see the path out of confusion, of literally the physical material condition.
That's a circuit. And there have been so many things in the physical that have become circuit breakers.
Yeah.
cut off that vibration, that frequency,
Yes.
and lulled us into thinking or believing that we're different, that we are, it has not, it's kept us asleep.
Yes. But Robert, that also says to us, at least to me anyway, my opinion, that, and my opinion, I have opinions. I have statements or questions, but anyway, that is the reason that we are obligated to remain one with the ancestors. It is impossible to have the resonance of the universe if you don't. And that has been the downfall of Africans in particular. And I do believe, and I said this before, that there is absolutely no group of people in the diaspora or on the continent who can bring this world to a place of balance other than the Africans in this country. I believe that we have to make sure that we resonate with the ancestors. We have to do that. I have never experienced what I experience now because I have not been consistently one with ancestors. I don't know, but knowing it and embracing it are two different things. Does that make sense? Teachers, you can't teach spiritual things if you're not you're not going to receive if you're not resonating with the universe. It's just not going to happen.
Oh yeah, and in the last few months I've been more consistent with meditation than I have been.
Yeah,
years.
And that's what the difference is.
Not unrelated to the fact that I've been unemployed for. But no, I'm good. Don't worry about me. It was, but I'm saying like I had to wait to talk about some of this stuff until I was at the place where I felt like I could.
Yeah.
And even in the last few months, I've been doing stuff that I've not done.
I'm hearing what Nick's talking about. Really, there is no finishing.
There is no
Finishing. It's
there's
a stuff that we have. It's infinite. Seriously, it is infinite. So you know, it's not like no finishing. It's where I say it was nothing.
Yeah. We'll cut it off. I have a question. If I'm going back to yes, sir.
You may have fallen into this a little bit, and I missed it. The history of the law of one, where do you think that came from? What's the background?
Specifically, it's like how it showed up in the 80s being channeled by this group or like as a concept.
Well, the way you explain it, the way you introduce it, it's almost like a show of how to go it, but you mentioned white folks the government.
No. Well, let me explain. Okay.
Yeah, a white folks do not develop. Okay.
No. White folks did not develop the law of war.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Before you said this,
So this is what it sounds like when it was chanted. And you can go listen to it on there, YouTube channel, whatever. But I am Ra. The law of one, though beyond the limitations of name, as you call vibratory sound complexes, may be approximated by saying that all things are one. That there is no polarity, there is no right or wrong, no disharmony, but only identity. All is one, and that one is love, light. The infinite, or light, love, the infinite creator. Now there's
We said all.
yeah. But no, white people didn't develop it. This was in Kemet. It doesn't come from Kemet. It doesn't come from anywhere. This is
Maybe understand.
the Kemetic understanding was probably the best of these same concepts as they come through people in every era of history. I guarantee you those black consciousness groups and spiritual dudes in New York talk about stuff related to this, as they talk about all kind of kinetic and Commission stuff. But these are, as is the case, this is white people's era of history. And so this is in a variety of the other ways. One of the ways in which that same information comes through again. So no, this doesn't come from white people. This comes from spirit. It is universal. This is present on other planets. But in terms of its, as a cohesive body, in terms of its clarity and its breadth of concepts, this particular source is the best one that we currently have in our modern times, whatever that means, like translated in English by people who are American and understand our concepts. So you don't have to go digging through the Kabbalion to find this, which I guarantee you the Kabbalion, like these are more specific concepts, whereas you can't see that. Things like the Emerald Tablets of Hermes, the Kabbalion, etc. These have the deep universal. Oh,
Yeah, I guess I'm like.
now you can see it. I was just telling them about this.
Yeah.
But so this gets much more specific. It goes into like current events, stuff like that. The essence of these concepts is universal and has always existed. In Kemet, they came to, well, not just this, but things like the Kabbalion and various other books. You will see the same thing. But these are actually the Kabbalion and the commentary on it by the three initiates, as they call themselves, is very good. It's also like it's spoken about with modern sensibilities in terms of examples we would understand, etc. But no, these are universal ancient principles. These are those same principles being spoken about along with a lot of very specific topics. And you can find these topics spread across the ancient wisdom libraries wherever they exist. Okay. But this is just things collected again, translated through some language. Because, as we've said, it's not a skin color. It is a mindset. It is the mindset of those who are for humanity, pitted against. It's not the best way to describe it, but pitted against the mindset of those who are the enemies of humanity. So we have all these sort of centers of vibration within us, and they activate as like tuning forks going up and down. So we heard the concept of the Kundalini. The Kundalini is the process of activating each one of these major centers, and it corresponds to the physical body as well, because the physical body is just a particular kind of vibration. Okay, so not only is this represented within us, this also this sort of describes the nature of the various planes, quote unquote, of reality. So when I talk about the astral plane, or I'll list them at some point here, but they are realms of vibration and energy, and we exist within all of them, but we are not conscious of our existence in all of this, due to the fact that we are still learning and growing. And it is as part of the spiritual journey and process to learn how to become conscious of that which we are unconscious of, concerning the nature of the self and its true nature, its true being, as existing in all parts of this thing we call reality.
So, H-ray. We don't change simply because we are living in a different way. And as a matter of fact, most of the time we don't even know it because of the consciousness. Here's the example here's the point is that when we were talking about and Yahweh said, God said that I will bring you about to create great within change, and I'll bring you back to your senses, really. And when we embrace that, we don't, it's no longer restricted. It's no longer this. Why? Because we're in another realm. Your looks didn't change. Your thoughts didn't change. But what happened is we were trying to understand the reason that it was no longer there in anybody. Because without us knowing it, the message had been fulfilled. And we didn't need it anymore. Because we were on the journey of being brought back to our senses without even knowing where we were headed. Simply because we made a statement. When you see God, it won't look like God. Because it looks like God. And even when you look in the mirror, you still don't see God. You see your face, but you see God when you close your eyes. Now, listen. So this realm thing is something that I do believe today our desire should be to be able to recognize the shift in realm. Because when we talk about a shift taking place, we are talking about cosmic movement, right? To different realms. And when that happens, everything looks different, but we attribute it to a decision that a man made, as opposed to a desire that God has. Men don't make decisions that change things. The desires of Elohim is what changes things. If we did not have the desire for balance and humanity, Trump would never been president. Think about that. There has to be a desire before there can be a fulfillment of desire.
That desire is the thing that opens a space for the vibrations of the above to enter into the below. The desire is, that's when, probably because of my dad, but I'm like very, think too much. And I'm like intellectually trying to figure all this stuff out. And I've always thought about what does it take to awaken within myself? It's not a function of your ability to think. It is a function of your desire. That's it. You want to know. And that begins processing deep within yourself that you're not even consciously aware.
That's the reason that I think we have troubles. Because I mean, look at the room. You got a room full for intellectual ability. You know, who that's accustomed to figuring things out on single when there is nothing to be figured out. It's the experience.
Yeah.
And that's I had that problem.
I think too, Nick, when we, talk about our physical senses and being able to appreciate the physical senses moving into the spiritual senses, this is what we talk about our third eye, our third ear, our third nostril. And I think that we're moving in that realm now where spiritually there's something that resonates when it touches a deeper place in our being. So I think it's touching into the chakra, or touching into that spiritual position where all of it is coming into one accord. When we talk about the 12 senses, we can talk about it in terms of looking at it physically, but I think moving into that spiritual realm now, when it all connects, and what it says that in the nostril, the back of the nostril, the olfactory area, the bone, when those senses all come together in that one place where it all synchronizes, that's that cosmic enrapture that takes place where now we're beginning to experience it on that spiritual level, if that resonates. The pilot, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I'm giving, okay, no. Something resonating.
Your entire physical body is a tuning fork.
Yeah.
It's designed to bring all of this here, but it can't come all at once because light, darkness, quote unquote, well, not darkness, but not in the sense of it being, of course. darkness cannot exist in the presence of light. This energy that exists cannot come here because this moving forth is not ready for it, which is the process of spiritual healing and journey, etc., to make yourself able to deal with the reality of who you are.
Well, that's not big deal.
No.
That's the issue.
Have you ever heard of spontaneous human combustion?
Yeah.
Yes.
That is, imagine the container cannot hold the energy that is part of that, that is trying to get in for various reasons. I believe that is very much related to this. The physical body, you have to go through a process of healing, etc., mental, physical, etc., to even be able to truly deal with the nature of this energy as it is attempting to influx and to reach us here.
And here was no more.
Yes.
That's
The world.
spontaneous combustion.
Right. So I don't just mean none of this is purely metaphorical. So this is
It's real.
yes, your physical body, the material of the physical experience operates in a particular range of frequencies, like a radio frequency. You experience it within that. If you go outside of it, disappear. So the other realms, the astral realm and the rest of them, which we'll talk about, which we'll get there, are different ranges of frequency. And that's related to consciousness, that's related to what happens when you go to sleep, is related to ET being, etc. Okay.
Oh, this for like, I had never really thought about it. Just looking it up, like, so we use the term universe and realm, and so I'm just so just looking it up. So the universe is basically it encompasses all space, a collection of everything.
Yeah.
And it looks like realm sort of like defines certain spheres. And so I never really thought of the shape of a realm being in a sphere. Is that what you see? So universe, you talk about the universe encompasses everything, all space, time, and collection, and then realms are like sort of different spheres. I never really looked at it. Yes. I never even looked. I was just curious, like,
It's vibratory. Yeah.
That was the concept of law. When I talked about realms, it's the circle. It's the circle. Realm within a realm.
So the lower vibration is contained within the higher vibration. So there's all kind of diagrams and stuff that people have made that are pretty good, but it's like those nesting dolls, those Russian nesting dolls.
Yeah.
Each level up is like another layer at the top of vibration. So that's sort of the best way I can describe it.
Wait, but what you just said though, the lower vibration contains other ones, and so
The
the
higher
lower vibration, the higher vibration. So the lower vibration is this physical container.
The cup.
Yeah.
It's symbolic of that physical container.
What it is, you have other bodies and other containers. So when you travel in the astral body, that is a container of a higher vibration. It is a container of a higher realm or area of frequency. And we'll talk about that as well. But
this is why we look at math and music as almost spiritual languages.
Yes.
Or whenever you see like television or movies, and they're going to talk about communicating with alien races, they'll say music.
Yeah.
Or math
Mm-hmm.
to indicate something. But those languages can encapsulate the layers that we're talking about and the realms within realms.
They are better ways to describe them than any of our sort of intellectually objective attempts to describe it. Yeah. So even in the law of one, they talk about octaves of reality, because it's literally like notes on a piano. They vibrate at different frequencies, but they repeat.
Right.
At the top of an octave is the beginning of another, but all they different register. So that's how it works. All these things are folded within everything else.
And that takes me back to the explanatory. Who is them that they do their best they
Yeah.
do their best to make sure that males have lower esteem, self-esteem when it comes to math. They don't believe they can do it. Males don't. Why? Because that's the key. If you resonate with the music, the mathematics, if you experience that, then that changes you within. If you have low esteem about your being able to learn mathematics or anything for that matter, but especially that, then it's very difficult for you to retain pretty much anything, especially on the spiritual plane. Because that's the way everything is either math or music or combination.
Yeah.
Everything.
And in terms of, and you feel these things.
Yeah.
That's why it's beneficial to the proverbial day, I will describe, to put out very negative music, especially in terms of hip hop.
Yes.
Because you got to destroy. You have to create an environment that convinces the black male consciousness to go in a negative direction as opposed to a positive. If you want to survive yourself as the, would-be ruler of the planet, you just can't have that competition.
But you really awesome. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
They was talking about what's happening in the community.
Yeah.
They were right, white people came together, white men, and decided that they were going to use hip hop to destroy the males in the African community and separate the males from women. And they would not produce a rap song that did not what's that word I'm looking for this generate fear. They would not do it.
Now there's we'll talk about the they, but there's just all that takes place within capitalism, within materialism, because materialism is the religion of a certain type of consciousness that is very low vibrating, but giving. So tuning, for example, that is how the above gets into the below. That is how the below seeks the above, and they meet. And in the raising of each one of these is like a whole different subject we should go into at some point. But and the raising of the Kundalini serpent is the point of equilibrium. So you deal with yourself, you learn how to investigate yourself, you heal yourself or whatever, and then the point of equilibrium rises within you. The centers are activated as the vibration, your overall vibration, raises, becomes higher. And that's part of what is happening in the activation of what we call the Kundalini circuit, which we talked about. It is, once again, not metaphorical. You feel this. And I'll talk about it, but I have a friend, actually one of my best friends from DC, who this happened to. But he had it was a spontaneous thing. It ruins your life. Because up until that point, he had not had the requisite spiritual growth side of it. And it was energy activated as a result of a ceremony he attended, which I'll explain. But my point in saying that is this is a real felt, experienced thing. Okay? And little by little, step by step, or in some cases, it hits you like a ton of bricks. If it hits you too hard, spontaneous combustion.
You used the word for elevation. You kept saying equilibrium.
Yeah. So what is in the above can only descend as far into the below as the below prepares itself to be able to receive it. So, and that's the point of equilibrium between the vibration in the above and the below. At some point, it still makes sense, but
Meaning the point of balance?
Point of balance. That's equilibrium. And that basically means the extent to which you can raise your own vibration is the extent to which what is in the above resides within the below, as you, through you. And that's what I mean.
So how could your friend just go like that?
My point.
So he's not balanced.
Right. which creates, I'll explain it when I get to that specific example, but it creates a sort of chaotic state. It's not good. So it's kind of, it's like sticking your finger in an outlet.
It's like a dissonance.
If your body can't handle that, then you're going to experience everything that you don't want to experience. So it's not that what is in the above can't come to the below. It's that we seek to balance those things.
Can it be because of his desire, what he was trying to get was not, well, I won't use the word honest, but was not pure?
I think that's possible. But in his case, he had no thoughts about it at all. There was no sense of spirituality before this happened. And that is possible. So we talk a lot about spiritual development, and we talk a lot about energy. But those things are kind of two sides of the same coin. As you develop yourself spiritually, your capacity to vibrate with a particular energy increases. It is also possible for that energy to be present without the necessary spiritual development. You will not get the benefits of it, of what that energy is, and we will talk about that. Because those words, I want to clarify those words and what this is referring to. But it is possible, as I said, it is like sticking your finger in an outlet. It can happen spontaneously, although not without reason. It can happen for a variety of reasons, but it is part and parcel of what it means to be a physical being, because this is a realm of vibration. It is connected to all these other things, and there's all kinds of stuff that can happen.
So, Nick, do you see, or we kind of had a conversation a couple days ago. We were just talking about, like, several years ago, there was talk of vertigo, but then as people started realizing more senses, and so what you said, basically, sometimes trying to pull too much in at one time can lead to a state of stress, or what we call now vertigo, where someone's equilibrium and balance is sort of thrown off because they, external things or stress or pressure that they put on, maybe it's too much at that time, and they start to experience vertigo for a period of time to rebalance this side.
That's probably related, yes, if it's talking about just the effects of stress. But as it relates to vertigo, have any of you, while meditating, felt dizzy? Dizziness is it's the attempt to rush in for this energy and vibration when you put yourself in a position where you are more receptive to it. So vertigo and dizziness is I would say, a common side effect when you begin to meditate more consistently, when you begin to sort of reach deeper places within yourself. Because that is kind of like a physical, it's like static a little bit. It's just one of the potential side effects that happens when you begin to touch deeper places in yourself. When you bring a certain balance to those deeper places so that what is attempting to reach us actually begins to move into the space we create for it. In terms of our conscious experience, in terms of vibration, etc.
Sort of makes you off-center to the physical. In a sense, that's what's true.
Can, and that is the whole, we approach this in a balanced way. So not too much, not too little.
When you meditate and felt off, you had to rebalance yourself when you were coming home. Same person. Same person.
Again, everything we're about to talk about, I guarantee you, is the introduction to these concepts in terms of the explanation. So, yeah, any questions you have, write them down. We can come back in later, ask me right now, and I will attempt, if I know, to answer. But does that help? You don't have to necessarily be spiritually balanced in order for an energetic thing to happen to you. You don't have to necessarily be experiencing all the energetic effects and abilities that we have as you spiritually progress. It kind of just depends on you, depends on your intent. It sort of depends on where you want to take yourself, depends on what your karmic destiny is for this lifetime, many things. But as you evolve, do this right next. as you grow spiritually, your ability to incorporate this energy and vibration increases,
But it can
whether you know
happen
it or
with,
not.
it can happen with psychedelics too, can it?
So for psychedelics, as mentioned in below one, which is a pretty good example, but psychedelics can open temporary, like throwing a window open temporarily to perception that you may or may not understand.
Yeah.
So it's less likely that something, what I'm referring to as the energetic or the spiritual aspects of this whole process would occur while you are busy being on mushrooms or LSD or whatever. But in terms of it altering your perception so that you can interact or potentially see things that are in the higher, yes, it can do that. But it's random. It's sort of like chaotic. It's not like, there's no guarantee you would see anything that you would even make sense of.
Right.
Or there's no guarantee that you would even see anything other than, you know, but it just depends on the person. If you are, that's what everyone knows the term, or the ayahuasca. Probably heard that before. It's South American shaman and various spiritual traditions use that. It's basically just, it's another drug that is directly affecting your perception. And the key ingredient is DMT, dimethyltryptamine. But DMT is everywhere. It's in the body right now. It's the thing that gets released when you die, actually. If there's in other circumstances, but it can flood your brain under certain trance states and stuff like that. But that is what the sort of ayahuasca or other drugs like LSD have the ability to sort of mimic. I know it's a lot. Okay.
Experience.
So that which is below corresponds to that which is above. And that which is above corresponds to that which is below to accomplish the miracle of the one thing. Hermes Trismegistus, aka Thoth, aka Tehuti. So all of in this era of history, roughly since the end of Atlantis, and I'm not going into that here exactly, but roughly since the end of Atlantis through the rebuilding up of human civilization, the greatest source of all spirit, knowledge, etc., comes from Kemet. So it is said that the Atlantis, before it was destroyed, sent out representatives around the world. And Kemet, I think, was even before Atlantis was destroyed, already had a relationship with them. But they went to Tibet, they went to Turkey, they went to South America, places. And in those places, you find what remains of ancient spiritual traditions, and also traditions of teaching people how to rebuild civilization. Anyway, but this is Thoth, Tehuti, but this is where, and this quote is from either the Kabbalion or the Emerald Tablets, I forget, but that's what we're talking about. Emerald Tablets. So the vibration of the higher being drawn into the space of the lower, via us, through our own spiritual development and seeking within the self, is what accomplishes, as it says, the miracle of the one thing, the purpose for which all of this exists in the first place. And the material physical experience is exactly for the purpose of learning how to focus on these aspects of ourselves that we need to focus on in order to learn how to be who it is and what we truly are, which includes all of the realms, all of the vibration, and the source from which all of these things come. So let's talk about spiritual growth and what that means and how it relates to energy and vibration and all the stuff we've been talking about. So spiritual growth is the process by which we learn to deal with the lower aspects of self, which is what we are meant to encounter while here in the physical experience. So the physical or material experience is one of a narrowing of consciousness, awareness, and experience. and a limiting of the freedom of spirit from whence we come. We come into this cramped space. So that we can focus on these aspects of our greater selves and learn how to bring balance and harmony to them. So this is the schoolhouse, the place of learning, where we, originating in the above, come to the below, where we have the ability to experience and focus on these variety of aspects of ourselves, in particular, in the beginning stages, the lower aspects, the negative parts of ourselves. Not just ourselves, but of our environment. We have to experience pain to some degree, suffering to some degree, trauma, heaven forbid, but virtually a guarantee. Those things are meant to be experienced so that we can learn how to approach them, how to point a higher vibration at what it is a lower vibration. And in so doing, transform that lower vibration or this experience of ourselves, but also of our environment, etc. And the narrowness of the awareness or consciousness that happens when we come into this space it's exactly like I don't have a good example.
In the wilderness, Egypt, tight place.
Moses in the wilderness of Egypt in a tight, cramped place, as it is spoken about in the Bible. Trying to think of an example of the narrowing of awareness is much like a camera aperture.
Mm-hmm.
It can grow big and then it grows small to focus on something.
Yeah.
When you come into the physical, part of what happens is all of your awareness goes and you focus on this realm of experience so that you can, in a sort of step-by-step way, deal with the things you experience that we all experience while here. Yeah. It's kind of like you have access to the full encyclopedia while you're in the other realms, but when you come here, you focus on one page, one concept. You learn how to master it and yourself. And you do that successively over multiple lifetimes. Whatever it is we need to learn, whatever it is we need to deal with and handle, so that we learn how to raise our vibration despite being in the place of the lower vibration. And I'll explain that a bit better, hopefully. But so, as we've spoken about, the 42 laws are really aspirations or ideals of Ma'at, being an example of a philosophical system designed to help us individually and collectively bring about that balance, to help us learn how to deal with all these negative things that we are guaranteed to experience at some point while here. And getting a little bit ahead of myself, supposedly, as it relates to extraterrestrials and stuff, this planet in particular is a particularly difficult place in the universe. So this planet in particular has like a long waiting list of beings who have not yet come into physical incarnation. Imagine like a long waiting list even just to get here. Because the challenges we face here are exactly what we need to face in order to complete the need to be here at all. So when we are created, we are not created here in the physical, we're created in the above. We come to the below to learn more about what it means to be a complete being. So the below is just stuff we have to deal with at some point. And if you're here, it's because, particularly in this time period that humanity is going through, it is because we have the ability to greatly accelerate that process of learning and spiritual growth. To address these really confusing, dark things, etc., that we all see every day around us, and learn how to heal ourselves, learn how to raise our vibration, learn how to deal with these things insofar as their impact on us, and complete the lesson for which we have come into this space in the first place.
So are we talking about an accelerated class, or are we talking about reaching
Yes.
the end of your diploma?
A little bit of both. We'll come A, we'll come B, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is but it like ramps up over time as the turn of the age at the end of the age, everything starts to get quicker, 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 quicker. And supposedly now, and I think I mentioned this at some point in the like over Zoom, but we are at this time period is the end of the end of the last, as I think it states in the wrong one, like 75,000 years of the development of the human spirit while here in the physical experience. So there's the precession of the equinoxes, but the planet kind of wobbles when it goes around. It takes roughly around 25,000 years for that to happen. And this is the end of the third time that has occurred. 3 being the number of completion, the number of resurrection from one state to another. Like this period we're in now is supposedly it. And I'll get to this as well. In the law, when I mentioned it takes somewhere between 100 to 700 years, I think. But it already started. Didn't start now. It already started. In terms of translating not us only individually, but us collectively and the planet itself, shifting the entire thing to a new vibration. Anyway.
I saw something, and those mutual physically.
You're talking about
Talking about the third eye, and talking about the thing, the third eye.
Yeah.
And talking about potential message that was translated as your time is ending, something. Now, I don't know.
Mom, do you remember years ago, you said you had a dream where in the dream, Pastor Richard showed up and said something about harvest? I remember you describing that, but how will you remember that? Mm-hmm. The long one uses the word, well, you don't have to remember it.
I didn't take that to mean
But yeah.
End of all things. It's the end of a stage or era or.
But the hunters doesn't mean end of all the opposites. Means that something else is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. It's graduation time.
I just wanted to reiterate though.
Yeah.
This planet, this time period, this country.
In particular, this country. Yeah.
In a black body.
Yeah.
We're talking about like levels of difficulty here.
Oh yeah, no.
Like,
and
it's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's traumatic.
Yes.
Well, no, it's traumatic as hell.
Yeah.
And learning how to deal with that is the greatest and most valuable spiritual that you will ever learn.
Are we at 699? If you're 700, we're at 699.
So, if it's between 100 and 200 years, I believe, and I'll mention this at some point, it greatly accelerated sometime in the 1940s when we detonated the first nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry.
Yeah.
Now, Nick, would you say as well that all of us, before I guess you would say coming here for lack of better words, though, also signed up for like advanced intense training? Like when you think about a yoga session or whatever, like we signed up for this intensity in some sense. Like it wasn't that we came here to have like a nice, easy time. It was, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. We definitely signed up for some advanced training, some intense training.
I didn't know what it was, though, right?
Yeah. And this is like, when I talk about the other realms, like the astral realm, etc. Like, when I forget what it said, you do stuff in these other realms. Yeah. You don't just be sitting up there playing a harp like, no. You plan what, you can never say for certain what will happen. Because within this, kind of all the rules go out the window sometimes. And there's free will, so you can,
Right all the time.
Yeah. But you plan for what this will be. And you say, this will happen to me because I need to learn this and this and this. You do that with, there are councils of beings that you speak to before you come here. That you can learn to speak to now. Mm. If you learn how to do things like astral travel out of the body and stuff like that, which I will talk. So I want to make this very real in terms of what these concepts are actually relating to, because this is not as I keep saying, it's not a metaphor. It's not like a thing to think about. When you go to sleep, you can teach yourself how to leave your body if you so choose. Anyway,
Nick, I want to ask you something.
yes, they have.
And I'm not even told to see this because I've been blaming it on hormonal things. But I've been, and I know we all have these these flashbacks of I've been there before, but it's been more frequent with me. And I don't see myself, but I know I've been there. I've talked to this person. I've said it before, and it's becoming very frequent.
Yeah.
I haven't mentioned it to you because I know you say I'm menopausal. But it is. It's becoming now that I have this every week and I can't see myself
yes.
in it. But I know I've talked to this person. I've seen this whole thing before.
Yep.
So is this not menopausal? I'm not new to it, but I feel like I need this because I feel like it has something.
Well, if it feels like it's getting more and more,
yeah, it's because it's not just like you've had occasion like, oh, I've been here before. It's not. It's like I'm feeling this like once a week, and I can't see myself, but I know I've been in this place, or I've talked to this person, or I've said this thing.
Well, why did they name it deja vu?
Well, we were just talking about that.
What does that mean?
Deja vu means.
I mean, I know what it means, but why did they term that? Because this is something.
That's what it feels
spiritual is what you're getting ready to explain to her.
Yeah, but that's what it feels like. It feels like you've done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of deja vu, yeah, but it is related to that. It could be related to menopause in that menopause is like another puberty. Like you're going through a phase transition. And in that phase transition, there are things happening to you energetically, things happening to your consciousness. And it's just unlocking things, who knows? But yeah.
Even that, your point is well taken, Lily. You call it what you want. The basis of everything, the reality of everything is spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah. And 100%, you can recall things you've done in previous incarnational cycles. That's another one of those, and we talked about reincarnation here, but that is another one of those sort of fundamental spiritual realities that is a component of reality itself. That is a thing. And when you first hear about reincarnation, you usually hear about it in terms of like the Hindu system or Hinduism or something. But Hinduism is it's sort of a, kind of like how the Catholic Church is to the spiritual, mystical origin of Christianity. Hinduism is that to African spirituality.
But that's the Kushite community.
Yeah.
Or the darker skinned people in India. So
yeah.
That they brought it with them. But you know what I say here? If you take a little piece out of Hinduism, or a little piece out of Christianity, a little piece out of Judaism, because they got enough truth in them to make you believe it, and put it all together, then you have the whole picture.
Yeah. They're all related.
All related. So I want to ask Tara, what did you see?
It's
I'm living this.
I mean, it's nothing that I can explain. It's just becoming more frequent.
Yeah. That sounds to me just like, because like I said, menopause is we're constantly in a state of change. But there are periods where that change accelerates, there are periods where it slows down. Menopause is one of those. And then in that period, all kinds of things are happening to your awareness, to your consciousness, to the energetic state of your body. And it's unlocking things and experiences that you didn't necessarily know about, etc.
But not to mention, we had 3 supermoons.
3 what?
3 supermoons.
Oh, and that is, yes, within the context of everything we're talking about, the energy that we're all existing within is accelerating itself. Yes. Where did I put my there? Okay. Oh yeah. So the 42 ideals or aspirations of Mahat. But and as we've spoken about before, justice and balance is more accurately represented by a feminine symbol, and that is exactly where it comes from. Because as we were talking about, like masculinity in terms of its essence, it's like signet. takes you from one place and goes to another, like the straight line that Credo Muchwa was talking about. Whereas femininity is the circle. It's the stability of staying in one place. Right? And that's the oversimplification. But that's why the symbols of justice and balance are feminine. So the scales of justice, we all know, goes all the way back to Kemet with the weighing of the heart. So when you leave this body in Kemet, and this is at the time where Kemet was becoming a little bit more religiousified in terms of their depictions of deities and stuff like that. But the weighing of the heart in Kemet, when you leave this body, is symbolic of the assessment of the spiritual development you made while here in the physical. Mm-hmm. And so that awaits all of us to some extent. We will review this life. Like you've heard of when people get in life or death situations or something and their life flashes before their eyes or something like that. It's a little bit like that. But imagine that just much more intense because you are outside of the body in the realm that accounts for that. Or when, and we'll talk about it, but or mention it, but when you've heard of people who have had near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences, that's related to what happens to all of us when we exit this body. You can do, as I said, you can learn to do that now, if you so choose. And travel astrally, you can learn to leave this body, you can learn to, there's all kinds of stuff you can learn that we don't know about because we aren't taught about this stuff. But anyway. So, balance, harmony, is more instinctively connected to and represented by, symbolically, the feminine. Justice is feminine, because justice is balance. And that is why it is the return to the mother mind, like Credo Muchwa said, that is the desire to return to the mother mind, that is the part of the awakening process of humanity. It is the return to the rule of justice and balance, or the reign of justice and balance, as guarded over by the feminine principle. Kemet, all of these things in their true ancient days were matriarchal. They were, it was well understood. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even I didn't include them in this, but there's if I can find them in the video later, but there's similar to how Credo Muchwa is the wisdom keeper coming out of Africa. There's another one who came out of Kemet. I forget his name off the top of my head, but I'll find him. But he carries the lineage of the actual tradition. So not just the sort of more religiousified way that Kemet or Egypt became, but the true origin in the mystical, spiritual, and energetic traditions. And one of the things he said was when you see images of a pharaoh in a throne, wherever you see them, but there's a female figure standing next to the throne, especially if she places her arms or hands on the pharaoh, that's because she's in the position of authority. Yeah. And our understanding of seeing the dude sitting on the throne is incorrect. And later it became assumed that the man was the one who was supposed to be in positions of power, etc. But that symbolized the feminine principle guarding and directing the masculine energy that was sitting in the throne. Mm-hmm. No, you're supposed to do what I know is the case. You just carry it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to deal with the difference between those two?
These specific two? Well, not anymore, but go ahead.
No, the attempt to replicate.
Oh,
so ended up with all the negative.
So yeah, we have in Kemet we have Ma'at and the principles. However, these things got translated up through Europe. We get still even, as I mentioned, in the representation of justice as being feminine. You get the Statue of Liberty. Is not, I don't know if that's Ma'at, but it's one of the, that's also from Kemet. But this is abused and sort of inverted by the so-called negative mindset in the earth that attempts to use masculinity to be dominant, as opposed to use masculinity to be an agent of change for the better. So the symbol of the justice is blind with the scales. I don't know. Actually, that's all I got.
Well, when you look at it, at the foot of it is the serpent.
Mm-hmm.
The serpent.
Serpent.
And the serpent in Christianity is always there. In European theology and philosophy is always there. Then you talk about the justice. But then when it talks about justice being blind, well, if justice is blind, how can you see injustice? So, and then on top of that, when it is justice, how do you deal with justice? You don't deal with the principles such as male. You deal with sword.
Yeah.
So you force what you deem to be justice on other people, and that is the reason we can see someone with as many counts against Trump, criminal charges against him, and he still be in power, wielding power, because they are the ones who created justice.
Yeah.
And what justice looks like, and that's what that represents. And they had to, because when they first came, it had African features, and they sent it back to France. But they had to, because it could not possibly have African features and still have those symbolic representations attached to it. So it was the universe who pushed it back to France and brought it back with the European features.
Looks like a foot is on the book.
Yeah, probably the law, whatever that is today. But
Yeah, it's I think it's even more in the Bible.
Yeah.
One of those two.
So one punishes and one heals.
Yeah.
yeah,
But there's a lot of symbolism in it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sheldon.
The thought that I had right before that, all of a sudden rushed me. And I don't even know if I want to call it a thought. So that's one of those less of lack of better words, I think. The quote unquote king sitting down in a sense, and that male figure, I definitely saw it as representing the seed. I did kind of see it as the serpent, but more so the kundalini rising up, but also sitting down, being more so rooted in the physical. The woman is standing up because she's not as rooted, and just as the idea, even, well, it didn't get emphasized so much from a religious standpoint, but spiritually, what the Holy Spirit represents is actually the feminine. And so the feminine is that which is coming down, and that balance or justice, in a sense, that even we spoke about earlier, is to more so guide that seed coming up in a sense, and more so directing it, or kind of like how healthy parenting works. It's not necessarily forcing the child to do something, but there are boundaries in a sense, so that the child can grow up a certain way, but still providing a certain amount of freedom, but not forcing. Then with what you mentioned, in this sense, I could say, JR, in terms of the one on the right, it seems like that figure of symbolism has been infused or looked at, maybe even taken advantage of or tried to be controlled with, definitely, which I think y'all were alluding to, the masculine. And so the masculine is, in that sense, was no longer allowing itself to be guided. It was doing just what we see now, in some sense, where the masculine set to be in control. The child that was supposed to be guided in some type of way tried his best to take advantage of that parent who was just providing guidance in some sense. And so that is the male version of what it is that we're talking about here, trying to take advantage of the feminine. That's the representation of it in that symbol in some sense.
Thank you, sir. I agree.
There's something else there too. I didn't notice that in her right hand, snatch on the right, she's holding a penis, and those supposed to be testicles, the baskets.
We're talking about here.
Yeah. What's the symbol in her hand?
The scale. So
Yeah, you can see it too. Yeah, I'm sorry.
wait a minute.
The handle of this scale looks like a penis. Is
Oh,
that what you guys are saying?
Yeah, no, I'm saying right here. I'm sorry. Right here, when we talk about reception and images, I see a white Jesus.
oh, no.
Right? And I'm like,
Well, I just pulled this up the internet. Those are
Yeah,
two
I'm
D
sorry.
ones. But you could.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, 'cause I see the sword, I see the ankh, I see different.
You talking about
You see it later.
I think so.
One is like the one there.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so.
I mean,
It looks more like ET to me.
see,
I just pulled this up the internet. Don't read too much.
the major portions of that and the symbols of it. I mean,
No, the symbols are. Yes, the ones that are
if,
there.
I know, if you walk into the monument, read that little that placard.
Yes.
It says dedicated to George Washington, and then yes, and there's some people who were Freemasons at the time that they commissioned it. So all of these things that we have looked at and what makes out pulled off the internet is full of stuff. However, when you see symbols that are in play in our environment, all of them mean something.
Yeah.
And every one of them, to reiterate what Barbara said, every one of them is spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Every bit of it. They knew what they were doing.
This method was founded by a bunch of Masons.
Yes.
Attempting to incorporate all of this esoteric stuff into every single thing they did.
Yes.
And Ron's question was
Yes.
pertaining to
You were talking about
the
the scale.
scales of justice, right? That's the one he's talking about.
So in Kemet, I oversaw the process of the weighing of the heart. So you put your heart on one side of the scale, and I should probably just look this up, but literally in Kemet, you can find this on hieroglyphics walls, is the same scales. You put your heart on one side and a feather on the other side. Right? If your heart is heavier than the feather, it said, "Oh, you accumulated too much negativity and stuff," and then you have to go through the whole process. But if your heart is lighter than the feather, where the halls of Amenti are related to the whole afterlife process. Okay. Also related to the emerald tablets, of course.
But this is also related to the ancestors. If your heart is heavy, you that when Paul talks about praying for the dead, it was talking about when someone is struggling to get over, to become one with those whose heart was light. They are that's energy is struggling, and we have the opportunity to intervene. And I didn't use the word intercede on purpose because it carries too many kind of religious connotations. To intervene with the ancestors in order to bring forgiveness and deliverance through that energy of that entity that exited that body. So it speaks to all of that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that all of what the ancestor does is intertwined with all of what we're talking about, whether it's ceremony or whether it is the principles of man.
Yeah. So does that answer your question? So these are directly related to the ritualistic practice and symbolic practice that comes out of Kemet. Yeah. So this is like, guilty or innocent, but it comes from the weighing of the heart. Kemet.
I just didn't understand what Ron was saying. I was trying to, because I didn't know which one he was looking at.
I see it as more than that. I guess I'm looking at the arm in the left hand.
Oh, you're looking at this.
Over here, okay.
The other one is in the right hand. But I think those supposed to mean the same thing, power and justice. One is
over here,
the
scale.
The ankh and what that represents.
And then the scales, you're
And then
saying.
the scales and the symbol that's in her hand.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, the symbol on the right side that's in the hand it is involved in the balance in that. And delivers through the afterlife. The Ankh is life itself. The Ankh speaks to life itself. The soul speaks to death.
I know. I think I know why. Sorry, I'm person out.
Apologize and move.
Okay, you started off at the very beginning. Jr. talking about knowledge and the opposite of knowledge being illusion, and you talk about, so what do the scales in the figurine on the right? What do those scales mean? What does that foot mean? Being on that book, it is actually talking about justice as it relates to physical acts, the physical world. That is why there's a male influence, or the male has taken over what that is supposed to represent in that figure, and is locking down and preventing that moving into the spiritual in sense. When I talk about or speak of the illusion of knowledge, again, it is focused only on concentrating on physical acts. Whereas what the scales actually originally meant, as Nick said, and with the Egyptian Book of the Dead, etc., it was weighing one's heart, not of things that one had done in their physical lifetime. I actually believe it didn't even matter what someone had done in their physical lifetime. It meant where they were in terms of their heart and their spiritual growth at the time of transitioning. So it was at that particular moment that the heart was actually being weighed in terms of its condition, in a sense, or in a sense of what has it done in this training? Did you grow, in a sense, for what that soul had came into this realm for? So in a sense, yes, the figure on the right, though it is supposed to represent what it meant in my with the comedic figure, but it's actually the exact opposite. It is the epitome of that illusion that you actually spoke of a little while ago. I'm done.
Yeah. Does that mesh with what I'm trying? Well, let me put it this way. I can clear it up. I was talking with some. Matter of fact, I mentioned it to Kathy once some time ago. This particular preacher I know, I keep feeling this struggle. And I keep seeing him in my visions when I'm asleep, with him struggling. And what I understand about ancestry is that there are the elevated and the unelevated. And the unelevated are the ones whose heart is heavier than the feather. They're not doomed in that. The unelevated ancestors can be, for lack of a better word, redeemed by virtue of seeking forgiveness on their behalf. It works. It happens much quicker if it is lineage, but if it's not, it does not have to be lineage. And I have dealt with that in that I've sat with the ancestors and I am in the process of understanding the nuances of how to deliver this person from their struggles, even though the brunt of what they did was directed toward me. But I see the necessity in my doing this because he doesn't have anybody in his lineage to do it. So this idea of the feather, of the heart rather, being weighed, I think it's the feather, and the weight is based upon not only your interaction with other people, but also is based upon your what is it? Your not just your thoughts, but your negative desires, for lack of a better way of stating it. He was greedy, manipulative, stood in the pulpit and did everything it could to manipulate the people under their leadership. And and to diminish the status of anybody who they thought was a threat to them. So I'm saying that when you say it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. I see the way it is more that more of how you interact and what your internal desires were. A man could murder somebody and still the heart will not outweigh the felon. Because it may take that murder for him to get to a place where he began to change the trajectory of his thoughts and desires. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes plenty sense. Thinking back towards where the tuning rods were, that murder could have taken place in the yeah.
Your voice is distorted with your mouth, your finger, and your thumb.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me clear now?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying, going back to thinking in terms of the tuning forks representation of the chakras that Nick showed, and to actually think that, okay, when that murder took place, he could have been literally vibrating in his base nature. So we're talking about the manipulation and things like that of this individual. That's what I was thinking in their base nature. In terms of his transition or presumably just any given time in terms of when the heart was being weighed against the feather, he simply would have no longer actually had been in that base nature, in that red chakra. He would have risen up from that standpoint, and that is the heart in a sense. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but the heart is getting lighter as you move up in frequency.
Yeah, correct. Yes, I agree. Thank you.
So I have a question about your example. If this person who is transitioned keeps appearing to you in dreams or whatever, and you're feeling strongly that you're petitioning the ancestors on helping him find, I'm going to say, peace, balance, and whatever, because that's what's missing, even though they have transitioned. Would that be happening to us? Because I think that's probably happened with all of us. People who have left keep coming back to us, and we see them. Is there a way through, in your case, because you said the things that he had done had been done against you, is there forgiveness and release that you're supposed to provide? Or, I mean, in understanding all of this of where we are now, because these things happen all the time. I'm wondering, how do you help teaching the ancestors to help us get them to where they need to be?
I'm gonna tell you what I did.
Okay.
When he comes to me, he's not saying, I want you to help me.
Okay.
That's what I sense coming from him.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one who can help me. As far as the forgiveness is, it's been done.
Okay.
I just don't care on forgiveness, period.
Right.
That's been done. But when I had every single vision that I've had, the same energy of deliver me is what comes. And I have looked at ancestral interactions with as many groups of people. I don't use that. I don't like that word tribe. But many groups of communities of people on the continent from ancient times. And I have not found any of them that did not see ancestry the same way as the elevated and the unelevated. And so I guess to answer your question, just because they appear to you doesn't mean they need deliverance.
Okay.
They can appear to you and bring you a message that you don't even realize until your mouth opens and like, where did that come from? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But there is no doubt about his appearance. I'm having appearances now about this church situation and the people trying to pull me back into it. But I don't have any clear direction on how I'm to move with that yet. But with him, I do. Okay. So there are some, like I said, there are some nuances I need to deal with first. Okay.
You say he already passed away?
Yeah. Oh, it took that he passed away, and it took 11 months, I think it was, to bury him. And the time that we said, not on our watch, that's when he was buried. He died in July of 1 year, and he was buried to August, not the December of the next year. He was buried before the first year, the December of the next year. I've been in myself, but yeah. So and during that whole period of time, there was disruption with everything that he touched. Everything. And when I say disruption, you know how when someone who is supposed to be at the top of the game, you know, how they revere him after death. After the funeral, there was no reverence there at all. Even in the places, the church that pastored, there was nothing there at all, with the exception of his offspring being there. But everything went into a state of disruption. And now the chaos is tearing everything apart. And his sorrow for what he did is what I feel when he appears to me. And that's the deliverance that he sees. And I see him just as clear as I'm looking at him. As a matter of fact, I see and I feel him right now. Feel that person right now.
So my understanding of that type of situation is the best thing you can do is just project love towards that person and attempt to
Tell everybody.
okay, so what he's talking about is something that you can do now and that you probably will do at some point during your spiritual development. You can assist other people who have already made their transition out of a realm of lower vibration. And there's a lot to that, but you can do that. And I've had one experience that I remember doing that where I was in the astral body doing that. It was like a spontaneous thing, so I wasn't really trying to do it, but I remember it very clearly. And the best thing you can do in that situation oftentimes is just to project love and joy and kindness. Mm-hmm. And in the hopes that they incorporate that vibration into themselves, because that is the thing that releases them from wherever they go. If that place is like a negative realm of thought.
When we talk about libations and ancestry, we're going to get deeper into the understanding of it, because there are things going. When we talk about libation and ancestral intersection, and the things that Nick is relating to us, these are not rituals. These are technologies.
Yeah.
These are not rituals that you do in remembrance of me type things. That's not.
Yeah, they're not empty things that you just do to do.
No.
That is the religiousification of all ritual is that you just do it because you're supposed to do it. But these are spiritual, metaphysical, energy technologies that you do. They are essentially ritualistic. It's a form of ritualistic magic.
Well, and that's where it came from.
Yeah.
There's the whole idea, and that's one thing Christians run from. Magic in the Bible is full of magic. But that's who we are. We are magicians.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We make things happen differently than anybody in the natural world does.
Talking about magic?
Yeah. I'm gonna stop. Oh my goodness.
No, you're good. How does everybody feel? Does anybody need a break?
Anybody hungry?
Anybody hungry? Because we are not halfway yet. Not really.
I need to go check on you anyway.
Okay, let's take a little 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I'm the
Like the garage, just sound around that corner.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
there's one downstairs, so. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I told
You can stay on, but we'll do 10 minutes.
No, she was saying.
Come back at 10 till.
That sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna pause then.
Thank you. So yes. Just got done talking about at least my part of the presentation was to introduce that ideals or aspirations of Ma'at are a system whereby we can learn how to balance these lower aspects, for lack of a better term, of ourselves. The lower vibrational things that we interact with, that we incorporate to ourselves, just by virtue of the fact that we have to deal with, etc. We can learn how to deal with these things. And that is the core of what it means to grow spiritually. It is to transform what is the lower vibration into what is higher vibration. The science of Kim. So, now, that balance that you learn how to create via the process of healing, via the process of transforming the lower into higher, and we talk about what that means and what it looks like, creates peace. It creates a balance and harmony that is itself of a higher vibration. And I just wanted to include this quote because it's one of my favorite ones from Black Elk in the book Black Elk Speaks. The first piece, which is the most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship or their oneness with the universe and all its powers, or when they realize that the center of the universe, that at the center of the universe dwells Wakan Tanka, which is what you hear Great Spirit. You ever heard that associated with Native American spirituality? And that this center is really everywhere. It is within each of us. This is the real peace, and the others are but reflections of this. The second piece is that which is made between two individuals. The third is that which is made between two nations. But above all, you should understand that there can never be peace between nations until there is no net true peace, which, as I've often said, is within the souls of men. To learn how to create peace within, so that peace can reign without, is the task of all of those who are in this physical material environment learning to grow spiritually. And that is how you raise your own vibration and heal thyself, so that you can help assist with those without. So you work within to assist, to eventually be able to assist with those without. But as I've said before, you are not nobody. Like, it's important to learn how to heal yourself. You can know yourself to have fun with this and to learn what it is that you actually are and what you have access to spiritually and metaphysically, energetically speaking. Black Elk. Now, as we've been speaking about, a nation, similar to the concept that Black Elk was speaking about, is a collectively experienced idea and consciousness shared by a group of people who, in good faith effort, all seek the same thing. It doesn't have to be exactly the same thing, but it is a general alignment of intention and an alignment of vibration. In other words, the death consciousness of a purely materialistic thinking must itself die, and a nation of the consciousness of life, harmony, pursuit of knowledge, and spiritual reality must take its place. To that end, we are all involved in that effort.
What kind of consciousness?
The consciousness of life, harmony, pursuit of knowledge, and spiritual reality must take its place, and it must take the place of the death consciousness, which is the consciousness of the worship of materiality. And those who use that consciousness to their benefit, aka the so-called enemies of humanity, those who wish to rule over over everything. Tactics are all the same, divide and conquer. And the ultimate division of consciousness is the purely materialized and purely material focus of consciousness. Because it can't see, you don't feel connected to the wholeness of anything. You only are split amongst its individual manifestations. Anyway. Now, the origin of any religious system is ultimately something that seeks spiritual balance in its origin, not in its sort of what it turns into, regardless of how confused that system eventually becomes. And just like tracing the path of light back through the prism from whence it split, understanding the mystical and spiritual origins of the world religions leads you back to the same place, to the source from which all of these things come, which is the science of consciousness and spirituality, which in this era of history I've spoken about originates with Kemet, for the most part. They are themselves a lineage of older things, such as Atlantis, etc. There are eras of history that we know nothing about, coming out of more southern parts of Africa as well. Right? I think I mentioned this at some point, but Kemet is kind of like it is itself a point of equilibrium between different nations of the earth. So it's a sort of halfway point between Africa and Asia and Europe, everywhere. And that is where its sort of perfection in its systems of learning and teaching spirituality come from. It is the perfect balance between all of these different polarities of being and thinking and existing in the earth. All these different vibrations harmonized, at least in its origin anyway. So it is this desire to return to where we've come from, that we experience in all of humanity, that is awakening within all of us, that is accelerating this process of the transformation of vibration, of the acceleration of the spiritual understandings, etc., within all of us. It is also putting urgency in the step of the enemies of humanity.
That's what we call pushback.
Pushback.
Yeah.
Speaking of the enemies of humanity, when spiritual ignorance dominates, complicated laws proliferate. We were just sort of talking about this. They are designed laws, the way that we think about them in terms of the legal system as it exists, as in terms of this and the way it is used by the mindset of the negative elites or whoever. As opposed to the true inner understanding of harmony coming from Mahat and Kemet. The legalese or whatever that results from this understanding is what I'm referring to.
So they try to impose that from an external point of view rather than the true, genuine, authentic internal.
Yes.
view.
Mm-hmm. When spiritual ignorance dominates, complicated laws proliferate, and they are designed to control from without. When spiritual balance and knowledge reign, then rather than a bunch of laws, the law, capital L, is known from within by all people. And this is where you get the law in the law of one. It is a foundational, universal, spiritual principle of spirit and existence itself. That is where knowledge of what constitutes harmony and balance come from. And that is where knowledge and understanding about how to implement a system that promotes harmony and balance comes from. It comes from within, from a knowledge of self, from a shared knowledge of self, and a shared vibration amongst the people who all are aligned in terms of intention. That is a nation of people. There is no way to put every word of the law into writing. It's impossible. And there is also no reason to do that. Now, the Law of One website, it clearly even states there's literally no way to put all of this into words. And there's also no reason for it because it is something you feel you are connected to, that you draw from intuitively, that you know how to act and behave amongst people in order to keep the balance and harmony of society. When that spiritual ignorance dominates and confusion dominates, then you instinctively, you probably still know, but there is at least an environment that tells you it's okay to be selfish or whatever it is. Complicated and dense legalese is the opposite of the language of spirit. And the domination of the corporation, even how we see it now in terms of our economics and our society and politics. And the attempts by the sort of corporate-minded amongst us to basically make corruption, enslavement, etc. legal through the use of legalese, through the use of their application of laws, as opposed to the law. That is what we see in our society, politics, and culture. And it is the result of spiritual ignorance that is promoted by the so-called negative elite.
I'm going to call them out.
Yeah, it's critique of capitalism. I've said this before. Capitalism is the economic system of the devil. For lack of a better term. No, owning a business, owning a business is not capitalism. You growing some tomatoes and selling some tomatoes is not capitalism. Capitalism has to do with owners. Who's the owner? Who's the slave? Basically. Anyway. It is this mindset is promoted by the negative elite and this sort of use of legalese and laws to essentially make it impossible to simply state common sense in a way. Anyway, the Illuminati, etc., whatever, and the corporation is part of the front-facing presence of what exists in the more esoteric or behind-the-scenes goings on in terms of our society and world, politically and socially. So the corporation is the organ of the dominance of the mindset of materialism. Corporation, as in corpse, is a dead thing because the pursuit and worship of materiality is as close to spiritual death as it gets. And the modern corporatized financial system is an instrument of the destruction of human society itself. Human society, for us, by us, that idea, as opposed to society designed by a machine that puts you in one end and generates profit on the other. That is the corporate machine that doesn't care about humanity, life, or whatever. It exists to expand. It exists to make number go up at the expense of all other things.
Extraction.
Extraction, pure extraction, with no thought for what happens when there's nothing left to extract. It is a death spiral. The modern corporatized financial capitalist system is an instrument of the destruction of human society itself to the benefit, as Charlie Chaplin called them in this movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it. This movie, or The Great Dictator, where he called them machine men with machine hearts. This pursuit of AI is in particular an outgrowth of this mindset of the machine men with machine hearts. It basically just means those who are so focused and captured by material experience and existence that they have no thought for anything else other than to perpetuate. And as we've said before, this concept of creating an artificial intelligence is the materialist version of reconnecting to the creator in a context of confusion. They want to make an AI God because instinctually, as all sentiently aware beings know, we are designed to reconnect and attempt to know the being of the creator in reality. If you think all that exists is matter, then you will do the same thing, and that is their version. And actually, I skipped the whole section about science and stuff, but a purely materialist worldview is spiritual ignorance, and that sounds very obvious, but it's funny because people who are here to that materialist worldview themselves do not know what the material is, or the method by which it is possible to even know what it is, or the implications that that reality has for their understanding of reality. You know, like people will always say, "Oh, it's just all that exists is matter." Nowhere in any sort of science or physics book is there anything about what matter itself is. Nothing. Because that question is almost outside of the bounds of their ability to deal with. You cannot intellectually, objectively know what a thing is or sort of deal with the implications of that. You must realize that you are it. And in the knowing of self, you bridge that gap that the intellect cannot cross. So I thought that was fun. Because that sort of exists as the basis of the modern scientific quote-unquote worldview. That worldview isn't actually scientific, it's just purely materialistic. Science is a method, not a worldview. So, as Charlie Chaplin called them, these are machine men with machine hearts. This is the Neanderthal mindset, the European mindset. This is the mindset of pure materialism. This is the mindset of the enemies of humanity, and they want that to be dominant over the earth because it is the ultimate. The tactics are all the same. It's divide and conquer within your very consciousness of and sense of self. So And roughly, I'm saying since the 1970s and the Reaganomics era is when this effort to establish global fascism greatly accelerated via the economic methods that we saw emerge in that era. And really, this whole era that we're in greatly accelerated, as I mentioned before, in the 1940s, when we detonated the first nuclear weapon. And that relates directly to ETs, it relates directly to the sort of what is going on behind the scenes, politically speaking, in terms of what groups of people are out there, what they know, and what they want. But the Reaganomics, the corporation, this purely materialistic mindset as it relates to our economics and social behavior and experience is an outgrowth of this desire to dominate the earth that comes from the so-called negative elites and whatever they're connected to. The real, as I just mentioned, the real modern acceleration of this probably started post-World War II as it relates to extraterrestrials. And I'm sure at some point you've all seen that speech that President Eisenhower gave where he said, beware the military-industrial complex. Even then, he was aware of what was happening. These people do not care about what human beings do in their daily lives or whatever. That is what he was talking about. That's the real deep state. And the deep state is the real thing. It's and I give more into, I made a diagram of where they exist, but it's kind of like what he was talking about was the military industrial complex like aspect of it. That's one aspect of it. There are multiple aspects of this sort of loosely connected group with all different intentions or whatever, but overall they want to establish their dominance. So we've talked about how the obelisks in Kemet were used to help draw down energy. And in Kemet, they're usually in twos. Like you can see them double at the front of temples. And we just talked about the tuning fork. That's what those are. Mm-hmm. But the Illuminati, or whatever they're called, they understand how these things work, and that's why they put these things where they go. That's why we have the Washington Monument. As I said, Eisenhower was talking about the military-industrial complex. So in the way they were trying to organize this in the modern era, post-World War II, and before that, because all these monuments were created, hundreds of years ago or whatever. The United States is a big part of the military wing of this negative elite mindset and group of people. And it has a big obelisk. The Vatican is part of the religious wing of this group and people. It has a big obelisk in the middle. And supposedly the city of London is similar to the Vatican. It's like a city-state within the city of London. It has another obelisk in it, and that's the financial one. Because London and the city of London is like a meeting point from east and west. A lot of financial transactions go through there. And that's where they put themselves because they knew they could control whatever's going on financially via that meeting place. And the energy that they want to use in that place, which they symbolize, which they attempt to guide in a way by putting the obelisk there. Everywhere they go, they are attempting to reuse the science of Kemet for negative purposes. There's there's a bunch of them, but in Buenos Aires, Argentina, there's another one. How many of you seen that movie Starship Troopers? Maybe I won't pull it up. Well, maybe. It's a sort of a parody movie, but it is about that fascistic mindset. This is like, and I like the director, he did RoboCop as well. He is making a commentary on what fascists are like, how they think. In this movie, one of the main sort of lines from that movie is the main character. He's like, I'm from Buenos Aires. And I say, kill them all. There is.
Yes.
But basically, they go to fight space bugs. But the bugs that's how that mindset sees everything that is not itself. It wants to conquer and destroy everything that it deems not human, basically. But it applies to literally everything. So it's like a mindset of a group of people who think that violence is good and that you project it over everything. in that movie, there's like pyramids in the background. Certain scenes in that movie, there's all kind of esoteric stuff like that. But I just present that as and the movie's good. Like the guy who made it is not one of them. But he was showing us what they think like, which is where it's good. Anyway, but he says in that movie, "I'm from Buenos Aires, kill them all." That is how that mindset sort of wants to create a generation of people who do not think, who do not connect spiritually. They identify themselves with this mindset. Machine men. Creating machine youth who are stuck within that system because they don't even think outside of it. That is the goal of the sort of negative elite, to solidify their mindset for the purpose, to the benefit of them. Mm-hmm.
That's where we are now. In the society. Mm-hmm. Training men who don't think. Mm-hmm. The whole idea, the whole concept of putting the military in the streets is conditioning for those kinds of stormtroopers. Mm-hmm. And the closest example that I've seen to what you were saying about how violent they are is ICE.
Yeah. ICE, and it's just like the Nazis.
Yes.
The Nazis were not like popular people in the beginning. They recruited like criminals, anybody who was like a social outcast. They were like,
if they were brave, come on
in. And that's kind of like with ICE. One of the political podcasts I like to watch a lot was like, ICE is basically just a job program for social outcasts. Like these people, they can't really mesh with the rest of society in a peaceful way. So guess what? Now they got a hobby. Great. Speaking of which, Trump gets to do socialism. Like they just get to do socialism and just don't call it that.
And did not.
That's yeah. They say, oh, your student loans are forgiven if you join ICE. We're gonna give you another check because of all the tariff money, which doesn't make sense, but whatever. They get to say and do that stuff, and everybody in the MAGA movement is like, yeah, that's good. That's not socialism, even though it is. It's literally redistributing wealth, etc. Because that mindset doesn't care about the methods that are used to accomplish its goals.
Not only that, they make more money than what they ever made in their life.
Yeah. Yeah. 85 grand, starved.
The ICE agents?
In ICE agents.
And if you are in a position in leadership, you get 100.
And you just got to be a professional asshole.
Plenty of them.
Yeah. Wow. But it's an accelerating thing. They just destabilize society, creating a body of essentially dumb, angry people. They give them a position, and then they allow them to, play out their essentially their anger, even though they don't really know what they're supposed to be angry at. And they tell them exactly where to point. It's like the movie trailer we saw. Stormtroopers. They don't think, they just do, and then they get their check. So that is the acceleration of the fascistic mindset that we are seeing. Yeah, that's the real deep state. As we've said, as we know, as above, so below. And here, in the below, we have to learn how to vibrate in tune with that which is above. Higher frequency realms, for lack of a better term, and consciousness. And in so doing, transform completely the nature of our quote-unquote lower self. Not only our own selves, but our environment as well. And complete the very purpose for which we have come into the physical material experience at all. It is learning how to deal with all the experiences that we don't like. All the aspects of ourselves we don't like. All the aspects of other people that we don't like. And really anything that we don't like that is a part of the sort of negativity of this experience. It doesn't have to be anything as dramatic as global fascism ramping up, which it is. When we are children in the schoolyard and someone throws a rock at us, these are all part of the experiences that we have here. And we have to learn how to emotionally, mentally, etc., deal with these negativities that we encounter. That's all part of this process. It is learning how to respond, to vibrate with love, joy, and acceptance to all things, including those things that we don't like. Now, that doesn't mean to condone or engage in negativity, but rather to shine a light at what is dark, so to speak, within ourselves first, and then without. That is the task. We might not want to deal with it, but to whatever extent, we have incorporated negativity within ourselves, through other people harming us, through us harming ourselves, etc., whatever. We must learn to vibrate with love in those deep places within ourselves. And in so doing, heal and release that negativity so we don't vibrate in tune with that which is negative without. So quite literally, I should have explained it, but when we talk about higher frequencies and higher vibrations, love, joy, positivity, etc., are how those frequencies are experienced. These are the way in which higher frequency is partially translated into the qualitative experience of our own feelings and our own being down here in the physical material. So imagine, it's been nearly impossible given the state of the world for many people. Imagine a joy or a love that is so great that it hurts. And you will, like it feels your physical body cannot contain it. And you will have a clue as what it means to evolve and grow spiritually, energetically, and in terms of frequency and vibration. And you will have a clue as to what awaits you, all of us, eventually, when we leave this physical vehicle on the day we take our last physical breath and enter, most likely, the astral body, and the nature of the astral environment we find ourselves within. So, quite literally, the feeling of joy, love, etc., that is how a frequency is experienced, a higher vibrational frequency. And learning to love ourselves, to vibrate with love within ourselves, is how we incorporate that frequency within ourselves so that we become the tuning fork in the below that vibrates with that frequency coming from above, which accelerates that process even more. Yes, sir.
The example says, catch yourself a reflective reaction, right?
Yeah.
All those experiences, are they really yours? Can you be experiencing something from?
Yeah, they're yours.
If we move ourselves more into a spiritual reality,
they're yours because you are also part of the spiritual reality. You are not, let's say, merely a vessel for other people to learn from or whatever. Although when you learn how to do that for yourself, it vibrates in a way that it puts it in the macro so that it makes it easier for other people. So they're yours, but you are connected to everyone else going through this process as well. Well, they're not yours in the sense that you will own them forever. They are.
You can experience them when you want to.
Let's say you don't own them, but they have been presented to you as opportunities to learn. And as painful as that sounds.
So catch yourself is talking about these thoughts and or feelings might come to you, but they're only yours if you embrace them. Right?
Yeah, in that sense, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to incorporate them or make them part of your being, but rather, if you realize you are responding or reacting in that way, you can choose to go a different direction.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the more you will not even respond in that way. So that because we've been taught to reflexively react with a negative vibration. And the more you teach yourself to not react that way, the more you teach yourself to incorporate the higher vibration and to even be able to interface with what that is. So I was just saying, yes, exactly. That's my next paragraph almost. So imagine the joy and the love so great, your physical body cannot even contain it. It's correct. The physical body cannot contain it. And that is why the types of heavenly experiences that are possible in the astral and other realms of reality can't be experienced here because the energy of your body is quite literally incompatible with what that is. It would spontaneously combust unless you have gone through the process of the spiritual growth and transformation that allows you to even interface with that in a sort of conscious way here in the physical body. And I mentioned this somewhere else, when we talk about the transfiguration in the New Testament, that's what that is. I have examples that we're going to talk about. But literally the physical matter of your body is shifted to another realm of frequency in order to interface with what is there. When we learn how to heal our trauma, bring balance to those things that are chaotic within us, it could be emotions, feelings, thoughts, whatever. We are creating a space for higher frequency consciousness and experience to take residence within us. Or really, we are realizing that those higher aspects of our being actually are us, as opposed to this illusion we've been soaking in. Not whatever aspects of the material illusion we have been taught. That's all that we are. Because as I mentioned scientifically, that whole sort of materialist mindset is like, oh no, you're only matter, and then has no idea what matter is, or what that question is, or why that's important. And like you're saying, Ron, a simple example of how to grow spiritually is to become aware of the unconscious reflex reaction that we may have. Any reflexive negative response coming from us is an indicator that we have been trained to focus on a lower frequency of the experience of self. So we have to retrain, we have to unlearn what it is we have learned. Getting mad, sad, afraid, reflexively or reactionarily, without even thinking, is because that momentum to react that way has been built up in our subconscious by virtue of the experiences, etc., that we've taught, that we've had. And we have to learn how to catch ourselves in order to not react, to sort of teach ourselves a different means of dealing with what it is we feel and experience. So learning how to catch yourself in this way is extremely powerful because that mechanism, learning to catch yourself, is itself the basic mechanism of all meditation. It is learning to simply observe and be aware of yourself. And realizing why we think and feel the way that we do. So it's kind of like the example that I've used before when you're doing it now, but like when you're speaking, you catch yourself so you don't be like when you learn how to give speeches and stuff, they tell you don't do that. So you have to be aware of that reflex action because it is a reflex action. And in becoming more aware of that and learning to not do that, you are in that moment using the meditative principle to shift your own consciousness. So I say that's a very powerful. I say it's a very powerful example because those things we do habitually on a daily basis are the things that have been reinforced more than any other thing. And it seems simple, but if we can catch ourselves and change those things, that is the whole essence of this process of shifting the nature of our subconscious environment and vibration. Just be aware of yourself. Observe your own thoughts and behavior and why you feel like you feel. You don't have to exactly know why, for example, you respond, or you have anxiety, or you have whatever. Like the specific reasons are different for everyone. But it's learning how to essentially project love at your own self in a way. So that deep place wherein that negativity is experienced is transformed.
I feel like a quality therapist will help you with that process.
They should if they're good.
Yeah.
They give you techniques to deal with your own internal chaos. Yeah.
So if you don't love yourself, you can't deal with your own issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's difficult to learn how to do that and what that even means. And nothing about this environment is really conducive to
Just find it.
healing myself.
The power of love yourself and with somebody else.
Yeah. That's why they say the people who become psychologists are people who have like bunch of psychological issues.
Yes.
And it's always easier to deal with what appears to be without than it is to address what is within. At least at first, because that's how we're taught to think about things.
This doesn't feel related, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I was talking with my therapist about something that was bothering me, and she noticed that there were tears in my eyes, and she asked if it was sadness or anger. And she said, I always have to ask with women because that is a way that women have learned to express anger. It will just come out as tears. And I feel like there's something to that and the way that we're socialized as women, but I don't understand why that's relevant.
Yeah, I can see that. Because that sort of confused masculinity in its toxicity definitely doesn't want like any sort of threat coming from women. So it doesn't want the anger. It'll accept tears because tears are more acceptable to it. You know?
And females try to mask it.
Yeah.
They try to hold the anger.
You learn to mask it.
You socialize them to mask the anger. It's not joy.
Can you heal it if you don't know the root cause?
Yes.
Yes.
But at some point, you'll likely learn what it is.
See, when you especially if you counsel some people, you don't always get to the root cause. So you don't actually get to it, but you have to live with it. Right? You talk to them about it, but you have to live with it because you don't always get to the root cause. No, I haven't. And sometimes they know the root cause, but they can't say it. I've talked to people who it's too painful to verbalize what they were experiencing. Now, did they get through it? No, they put a band-aid on it until they, but you got to eventually get through it. So, yeah.
I firmly believe though that some of those emotions that we perceive as negative have a place in who we are and the shaping, but in what we do.
Yeah.
But they can't be out of control, I guess.
Exactly.
They can't be directed by our intellect or by our egos.
Are done.
Yeah.
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 But I've been feeling very strongly that feminine anger has a place.
Oh yeah.
I think the place that they have, especially with anger that's suppressed, is a reminder. Get rid of it. Do not repress what hurts you. Respond to it. Not react, but respond to it.
Respond.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And most women don't respond to this. This is the build up. Okay, Miss Thompson. You understand it?
Thank you. And as I'll say it again in a second, that doesn't mean things like anger is bad. There's a point at which it becomes toxic. There's a point at which being afraid becomes anxiety. Like it eats. That has traditionally been my problem. Anxiety and then overthinking. But in meditation, you can address these things. You can literally intend something at these feelings, and it helps you release them.
I think the difference between healthy anger and unhealthy anger. Unhealthy anger is when you desire to respond to it in a hurtful way. Healthy anger is a message to you about whatever you're angry at, the person you're angry at, or what you're angry about. Something that you need to address, but not necessarily seek to destroy or make it suffer. I see that's the difference. And I do believe that females have a lot of repressed anger because of the environment we live in. But I also believe that men do too, because men, rather than release with tears, they're taught not to.
I want to add one thing when you're talking about the unhealthy way of dealing with anger. the unhealthy way of dealing with anger also is just not dealing with anger as well and continuing to deal with the same anger over and over again in terms of feeling, and in a sense you're fighting within your body, you're fighting internally, you're at war within. So to not address it at all, it's just to keep going in, a cycle over and over again, being angry about the same thing in itself also is unhealthy.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Slide 14. So becoming more aware of yourself is basically becoming more aware of what is in our subconscious mind. And becoming more aware of how what is in our subconscious mind affects our behavior, our thoughts, and our very perception of reality. Our subconscious forms the framework for our perception of reality. And that framework is built from the time we are babies. As soon as we come here, we start learning how to deal with and interact and incorporate the physical material experience into our very way of seeing and understanding reality. Our subconscious forms the framework for our perception of reality, and we are taught to ignore the so-called supernatural, quote unquote, perceptions and abilities that are natural to us, actually. And it is this ignorance that becomes part of our deep beliefs concerning the nature of what it is possible for us to do and experience. So when you tell your little kid, no, you didn't see, that little elf creature run across the lawn or whatever, you are entraining them subconsciously and consciously to focus on a particular set of experiences and ignore completely the rest of them. And that is how we essentially forget these quote unquote supernatural. I say quote unquote supernatural because that term is used to denote something that is not, normal or part of nature. Generally in terms of how we hear it. But these things are regular in reality. When we teach our children, or sometimes you gotta teach them to ignore the scary stuff they see if they actually see it. But when we teach our children and ourselves to focus on this material experience and all the perception and senses that are associated with this physical matter, and we lose our ability, generally speaking, to sense those things that exist in other realms, and as we can speak about, or ranges of frequency and vibration.
So, is that the reason you can have extremely intelligent people sitting in a church and not even process them to know that what's being said it makes no sense whatsoever. But they're put in the classroom. You get something totally different.
Or the opposite, you get people sitting in church who are more spiritually attuned than aware, and they know to ignore half the stuff they hear.
Yeah, and they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the intent is in person. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful when you think about the power of spirituality in words. Very, very powerful. Because I see words as being spiritual because you can't speak a word without spirit. So every word that we utter is a spiritual statement, regardless of what direction we are telling or what one to go around. Yeah.
Okay. And that's what I was saying earlier. Legalese is the language equivalent of divide and conquer, as opposed to the innate knowledge of the law, how to behave in a harmonious way. There is the specific and explicit delineation of every possible thing you can possibly encounter, which isn't even possible, and that's why every law book is 5 inches thick. It's not possible to encapsulate in intellectually language the human interactions that we can show. It's not. Anyway. As I mentioned, I say so-called supernatural Because we are taught to think of this supernatural as not normal or foundational or fundamental to reality in our experience, which it is. When it is the other way around. This ignorance and materialist myopia is not normal relative to the rest of reality. And myopia literally means it's like putting blinders on. You focus on one thing. You can't see anything outside of it. If you ever got tunnel vision, like I have on a roller coaster once, which is that is relatively what is happening in terms of our awareness when we come into the physical and are trained to pay attention to it and all it is. That which is supernatural is not only that which is supernatural is only supramaterial, in that it involves operation on levels of reality that exist above this physical experience. Now, to become aware of yourself, to deal with these things within yourself, is of course easier said than done. But step by step, you can learn to heal yourself. Physician, heal thyself. You can learn to transmute what is of the low vibration into what is of a higher vibration within yourself. In terms of feelings, you can direct your attention at your anxiety, fear, whatever, and learn to vibrate with love for yourself in those deep places within yourself. And in so doing, become that tuning fork that is much more easily able to vibrate with these things that are in other realms of frequency of reality itself. As I was saying, the supernatural is only the supramaterial. It is just a realm of nature or reality that is above, quote unquote, this realm. So you can release the things of the lower vibration. So when you meditate, part of what you can do is just feel around for your inner self. What do you feel? What are you thinking? More important is what you feel. And then I'll talk about it in a second, but you can intend to change that feeling. And that is how your vibration is raised. That's part of it. That then bubbles up from the deep places within you to affect your perception, to heal and affect your physical body in positive ways, all kinds of things. When you heal those deep places in yourself, you will affect this material experience. We're just thinking and feeling, but that is a vibration that the material experience responds to. So, of course, this doesn't mean that emotions and feelings are bad, like I was saying. Anger is not necessarily a bad thing at all. But rather, we can learn how to release these feelings if they have become overpowering or toxic to our own selves. And that's where that word toxicity comes from, because that is coming out of our collective subconscious. We know that a toxic masculinity, a toxic feeling or whatever is something that is self-destructive or destructive to other selves. It's a low vibration that has the effect of disrupting everything. It is rather, we can release these things if they become overpowering, so that a higher vibrational experience can fill that space. And when we allow higher vibrations to make up our sense of self, then correspondingly, our experience and perception of reality will begin to change. Physician, heal thyself is true, but it is not that we can't receive help. Rather, we are here in the physical material experience to learn what it means to not need any help. To learn what it takes to not need any help, and then be able to help others, having learned that for ourselves. Now, in meditation, when you, as I'm saying, you feel around your own mind for what is present, note the deep feelings that you have, the beliefs that you have. And like we were just saying, you don't necessarily have to know why they're there. Something happened to you when you were a kid. I'll give some examples for me. You feel a certain way, but you can still intend love, positivity, and joy towards yourself. You can consciously address these feelings and things that you feel about within yourself as you learn to hold stillness within yourself. as I kind of mentioned, my problems have always been deep anxiety. I don't even necessarily know where it came from. And thinking too much, like racing thoughts. I'm sure we've all experienced that at least a few times. You can't even fall asleep because you're not turning your brain off. Mm-hmm. You can address that in meditation because the stillness that you're seeking to hold within yourself is the antidote to that overreaction. And it's all about where your focus is. So from my own experience, I've learned that I can intend certain things to myself while in meditation, and it greatly helps to reverse the momentum of those things that are in my subconscious, that those things have built up. So I like using affirmations a lot. So literally while I'm meditating, I will say things like, I don't need to be afraid. If I feel like deep anxiety or something like that. I don't need to grasp at every single thought that comes by, or every little thing. And then I allow the intention behind these affirmations to resonate within me as deeply as possible. All the while seeking to simply be still and be aware. Because your subconscious does not necessarily respond to the product of intellect. And like words, the way we generally think about them aren't intellectual. Your subconscious responds in terms of how to change it. It responds more to feeling and intention. And so, for example, an affirmation is designed to do exactly that. It's designed to help you deepen the intention behind the words you're saying so that intention can be implanted more deeply in your subconscious awareness. And it is then that change that happens in your subconscious awareness that affects your ability to perceive reality, that affects your health, that affects your anything. You have to sort of translate into the language that your subconscious uses, and it is more so based on feeling and attention. So, I have the chakras. Once again, same idea. The intentions form the vibration that resonates with a deep place in your subconscious. The overall resonance or vibration of your subconscious is what is more directly connected to the energy centers of the self. The more you can be in tune or coherent, which means sort of all aligned, sort of stable, basically, within your subconscious, the more the energy of the higher can make its presence known in the lower nature of the self, or the physical material. Literally, learn to love yourself. It is difficult, and that is like half the reason you're here. Learn to love yourself despite being in the midst of all these negative experiences and things that are, virtually guaranteed based on the time period of the earth we chose to be. Learn to not only love yourself, but love other people. And again, it doesn't mean to condone anything negative, but it means you do not vibrate in tune with negativity, but rather what is of a higher vibration. Okay. So, yes, sir.
Suppose that I'm saying I love myself. Do I really love myself if I allow someone to manipulate? Do I not love myself?
Mm-hmm.
So if I love myself, I get rid of manipulation by virtue of what's similar from the person in my house.
Whatever the case may
Whatever
be.
it takes to stay away from that kind of energy.
Yeah. It creates a lot of chaos when you know you need to get away from something you can't. And then, it starts to create a traumatic response.
Because if I don't, I'm going to get angry eventually. And that anger is going to be worse.
What about the person who doesn't know they're being manipulated?
That is part of the lesson. Love yourself means to respect yourself. It is all part of understanding what this means.
So an anger can be an indication of it.
Your anger response can be an indication of the fact that you actually do love yourself. If you get angry at the person who's trying to manipulate you, but you may not know what to do with that, you know.
Right.
An inner part of yourself knows. And that anger is there for a reason. Like I said, it's not bad. Anger is a natural response. It's like a defense mechanism. It's like your immune system. It's your emotional immune system. You need to separate yourself. You need to respond in a way that makes the person stop, whatever the case may be in whatever situation. Yeah. And yes, all of this, there's no rules to how development happens. You just gotta figure it out. Absolutely. Yeah.
No. The reason I was asking because this person that came to me was the essence of what manipulation is.
Until they release that, they can leave wherever they're Yep. So, anything I want to impress on you today above all else is that when you meditate, and it doesn't have to be sitting, but that is, I recommend that. For, in my experience, half an hour twice a day, once in the morning, once before you go to sleep, is a really good way to do it. But there is no best way to do it. Just be aware of yourself to the extent you're able to. And just be like, nah, I love myself. I don't need to be afraid. None of that. And you can heal and release these negative things that have been built up within us. We'll come back to these concepts. So spiritual growth is that. It is learning to vibrate with the higher in the place of the lower, so that you yourself become a higher vibratory being yourself. From the Law of One. The passive meditation involving the clearing of the mind, the emptying of the mental jumble, which is characteristic of mind complex activity among your peoples, is efficacious for those whose goal it is to achieve an inner silence as a base from which to listen to the Creator. This is an useful and hopeful tool and is by far the most generally useful type of meditation, as opposed to contemplation or prayer. So when we think of contemplation and prayer, we're thinking of like thinking. We're thinking of, oh, we need to say these words in this right way in order to get something to happen. And the prayer and contemplation are real things. But in terms of the religious way we've been taught to use those things, those are much more superficial than simply being still. Because it is in that stillness that you have the ability to feel for the Creator, to feel for your own higher self. That's also part of what we are attempting to learn how to integrate and communicate with. You can feel for those things deep within yourself that already know answers. And easier said than done, of course. Now, put the Ankh up there. I'm going to come back to that and talk about energy, but that's generally the symbol that the Law of One uses. But it's literally Ra, as in Ra Kemet. Because the beings have at various times attempted to make contact with various groups of people. Kemet definitely. Yeah. 19. Oh, hold up.
17.
That is 16 and 17, yes. We'll always do that.
It's math.
I can't do it. Sorry. 17, sorry. Yeah, when you hear spirit, that's it. If you have ears, hear, you know. When you hear spirit, when you hear your own higher self, when you hear the Creator, there is an impression made from the above into the below. And that impression is felt as a feeling, generally speaking, in the beginning process of learning how to interface with this. So learning to be still, to clear the noise and the jumble that is in our subconscious environment, allows those higher frequencies to impress themselves onto our minds much more easily. And this impression creates a feeling, and that feeling can then be translated. And usually we do this automatically in our subconscious. Like when I said channeling is the same thing as speaking words. We are translating from something that is unseen into what is seen. It's kind of like the automatic way we do it. We don't even think about it. Similarly, if you are trying to, in contact with your higher self, hear the creator in the way that it's speaking about, this can happen subconsciously automatically. When this feeling or impression is translated into something more specific, like an image, vision, or words, or whatever. And in this way, we can receive clearer messages from aspects of our own selves that exist outside the physical material perception. So, in a way, we do this with dreams all the time. Dreams are an attempt, usually, by our subconscious, well, normal dreams, quote unquote, and we'll explain that. Our dreams are an attempt by our subconscious to teach us something about something we need to address. It's usually emotional. The symbolism associated with dreams is usually attempting to convey to our conscious minds emotional things we've dealt with during the course of our lives, of the day, or whatever it is. But in any case, it is the way the subconscious communicates to our regular, what we think of as the conscious mind. It's symbolism, is feeling. And that's how you intend things at your subconscious if you're going back the other way in meditation. Using feeling, like intention via affirmation or whatever the case. Okay, so that ends the first sort of main section on spiritual growth that I'm going to talk about. Now we're for 18. Okay, so let's talk more about meditation and what it has the ability to connect you to in terms of what you can become aware of about these realms and the frequencies and experiences of reality. So I have said that the contents of your subconscious is what forms the framework for our perception. And so in addition to healing and learning to raise your vibration, it also allows you to consciously interface with those non-physical aspects of self and of reality, as that subconscious framework of perception changes and expands. So releasing negativity does not only have the effect of healing, whatever that means in its totality, it also affects your very ability to perceive reality itself. Because part of that incorporation of negative vibration, etc., that we hold on to in deep places within ourselves, it puts extra limiters on what we can perceive. Because we are so entrained to pay attention with this sort of low negative vibration that when the higher attempts to make contact, we don't even see it. So in that process of healing, as I've been saying, you make it easier for that what is in the above to make its presence known to you. You make it easier for you to be able to utilize it, the energy that we are, while here in the physical material experience. So you can perceive the realms of spirit if you desire to learn how. You can speak with the ancestors if you desire to learn how. You can meet spirit beings and entities present in other planes. Back to that. And all of these things are fundamental to what reality itself is. So the ability to, we've all probably heard the terms clairvoyance. We've all heard things like when we talk about seeing apparitions, or I saw my grandmother in a state of consciousness. These are all part of what it is natural to do when you learn how to reawaken to these other aspects of yourself, the more fundamental aspects of yourself. When you heal and raise the vibration, you open the doors of perception to these other things. Now, it's this whole process of learning how to grow spiritually, it's not as like one step after the other necessarily. A bunch of things can be happening at once. You don't have to have ever consciously, attempted to grow spiritually, quote unquote. And then all of a sudden you see the apparition of your, relative walking through your living room. All these things are just part of the context of the environment that we're within. When we attempt to consciously begin to grow spiritually, these things begin to happen more frequently if we want them. And we begin to align all this stuff in a more conscious way, as opposed to it sort of being random we have experiences over the course of our lives. We don't know necessarily why we experienced it and stuff like that. So this is about the conscious pursuit of balance and harmony. The conscious pursuit of the expansion of awareness that is possible through meditation, etc. As I said, you can perceive the realms of spirit. You can speak to the ancestors. Like this example of this man that is coming to you from some other place, that is an example of that happening within the context of dreaming or more than dreaming, which we'll talk about. So we recently spoke about the Akashic Records within Foundation. If that was your first time hearing about it when we started speaking about it then, there are more new concepts that I want to introduce that are, as I've sort of stated, foundational to the metaphysical and spiritual nature of reality. So the Akashic Records are a real thing, as we know. And not only the Akashic Records, but these components of reality I want to introduce and talk about are recognized by all spiritual and metaphysical traditions across the world, great and small, in one form or another, including Christianity. Somewhere in there is mentioned and related, if not formally, then by the people who are sitting in church themselves, who are responding to spiritual instincts. When they say people have gifts, or they, laying on hands and stuff, all those things are part of our energetic and spiritual heritage, whether we are consciously aware of it or identify it as that or not. In every case, it is the shift or change in awareness, our underlying perceptual framework, our subconscious, is a shift or a change in that awareness and vibration that allows us to interface with these realms, beings, etc., as needed. And indeed with our own supra-material selves, so our higher self. Those elements of ourselves that exist in higher realms of frequency that are actually trying to communicate with us in order to get us to kickstart this process. The truth is, we do this without even being conscious of it when we go to sleep, which we'll talk about. But as part of the process of growing spiritually, as we've been speaking about it, learning what it means to be a non-physical being, step by step, we must we learn to make conscious these aspects of ourself and reality that we are unconscious of. So if Miss Kathy and Miss Linda have these beings from other realms walking around their house, showing up on their phones, one of the ways you could have addressed that, were you able, or anybody able to do that, is you could, in meditative state, leave the body, meet them, and then feel what's the deal.
So I sat on the side of the bed this morning.
Yeah.
And I was really saying, look here.
Yeah.
I gotta get some sleep. You gotta stop this. Janice asked me an interesting question. I commanded them to leave once, and they were gone for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right back.
Yep.
She said, have you ever asked them what they want to eat? And I said, of course not. Didn't think of that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make you leave. I don't care what you want at this point. But I never thought of that.
And it is the strength of that intention that you said, all right, leave. And made them feel like, all right. But they came back.
No, when you're like I said, no good.
But they didn't leave this time. Would not leave. I mean, it's like, I want your attention and I'm going to get it.
Right.
So,
Give them your attention.
So there are, other ways there are sort of ritualistic, in terms of ritualistic, like magic, ways to address that as well. Like a lot of when you see in other spiritual or religious traditions where they have like a little altar, that is it becomes like a focal point of energy for ancestors or whoever to like meet. And when you do your little prayers at the altar or whatever, at least the spiritual energy sort of origin of this practice is to do exactly that. It is to be like, what do you want? Let me address it. Goodbye.
okay.
For various reasons.
The shift in consciousness, shift in realms. Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
There's no real separation. It is only what you are aware of. It's just like you looking at this thing, you learn how to turn your head and look at this thing. And then you perceive these things. That's it. But it's very weird because they don't realize we have those muscles and they taught us to use them. It's like when we were babies, it took us years to figure out how to make sense of all of this. How to use the arms, how to make sense of what maybe this means. It's a little bit like that in the reverse, as learning how to deal with this. You're relearning how to deal with these things. And it's simpler than you might think. It's one of those easy to learn, difficult to master.
Tell me the ship, sir.
What is that?
Even a fool can understand.
Yes.
So when we don't really understand who we are, we just create roadblocks to all of this.
Yes. Unconsciously, without even knowing. And at some point in your spiritual growth, you must learn to become conscious of those things within yourself that are blocking. Like I said, you might not know exactly why you feel scared or whatever. You might not recall the event, but you can intend to break up that blockage. Mm-hmm. And eventually, you probably will learn exactly why it's there.
And for people who just totally only believe in their physical selves and their own whatever is going on in their head.
Yeah.
Is that like creating an item?
It's definitely creating a blockage. I don't know about an idol, depending on how we use that.
Honestly, I think there's no difference between the two. The blockage and I. Mm-hmm. I don't see a difference between the two. Mm-hmm. The Christian version of the line that you go to you focus on your job, it becomes an idol, but it's also a blockage.
Yeah. Okay.
So if it prevents you from knowing yourself, it's you're letting something become bigger than you are.
Yes.
In a sense.
That makes sense. And also as it relates to purely atheistic material people, I guarantee you, yes, when they take their last breath and they come to in a different body in the astral realm, they're like, what the hell? That also happens to very religious people. You know, there have been like some of the people I like on YouTube. I'm talking about the babies talking about. There are babies walking around in church clothes and church hats in another realm of reality. They're being like, where's Jesus at?
Say when you come back and be back,
Jesus come back.
Jesus come back and be back, right? Because y'all gonna say you ain't you, and that preacher say I agree with you. In fact, you ain't you, but they say you ain't. So where you going? That guy black. I ain't going to hell. I'm going to hell. Ain't that something?
Mm-hmm. But and there's so much more to unpack with what this actually is. Like, for example, why are you still wearing church clothes after you make your transition? As it says in the, we'll tell this in the finale, all is mind. What you expect is what forms the framework for part of what you will experience when you leave this body.
I feel like it's
for me, you should be wearing church clothes.
It's for me. Yeah, for the reality. Because they just don't have any. You don't have all the soup.
Yeah.
You find have on food. You don't even have on coat.
Yeah. Now there's a lot more to that. Like, you don't stay wearing church clothes. You don't stay in the form of it. That's just part of the process of what happens. If you die with an expectation of something happening, that thing is probably going to happen. And then other beings from other realms are going to have to come get you.
Come on.
It's like trying to wake somebody up out of a dream or a trance. They're going to have to be like, wake up. You don't need to be doing this. Because despite the fact that you didn't learn it necessarily while you were alive, quote unquote, now you can be in that process anyway.
Like, if I go with him, I'm going to be on the elevator and elevator.
I get this old shit.
And Nick, from my understanding, that when you talk about the assisting of the people who are doing this, in a sense, it is as if an act or a play is put on to lead them out of that. So it's like you're so caught up on this particular thing, we have to at least, in a sense, meet you where you're at, and then change the dynamics in terms of you seeing reality. But we have to meet you in this place that you're extremely stuck in terms of what you were expecting a transition to be or to look like.
Yes, sir.
That was the same thing. That if you're at peace, you leave as easy as just taking half a milk.
Mhm.
If not, it's like a cup of milk. It's very difficult to pull you out. So the ancestors trying to pull you out.
Yep.
But you're so attached to material world and material things.
Mhm.
It's very difficult.
That is why if you get, while still here, if you advance to a place where a point you are able to in some way operate in the astral or whatever, you could get recruited. You could be like, okay, we need your help. We need to go help these people.
I'm gonna rest for it.
One of my major experiences that I sent in an email like years and years ago was an experience of doing that. I was assisting with helping somebody move on from whatever they got stuck in to go to another realm in the astral. And I remember it to this day. Like when I said it's like a joy or it's like a love you can't really describe. The one sensation I remember the most is that your heart is totally open from being in the upper towards the higher out of the lower realms of the astral that are possible. Just the can't really say. But that is what awaits when you leave this physical body. That is what you have the ability to interface with now if you learn how to do these things. Astral travel, etc., which we'll talk about.
I remember when, several years after my father died, dreamed about his being in college, and I was there.
You speak up, Barbara?
Several years after my father died, I dreamed about his being at a college, and I was there. And he was saying, "I wonder why am I here? I don't need to be here." I said that you're right. It's your choice. You don't have to come back to school, sort of. And after that, he was gone.
Yeah.
It's as if it's a release of some sort.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you don't want to set the tone for coming back to school. If you think you need to be here, you're going to stay here.
Yep.
You think you've done what you needed to do?
Yeah, maybe that came from his recruitment of teachers. So
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What you're describing, how does that compare to those who call themselves doulas? Am I saying it right? Doulas.
Yeah.
Who sit and help you transition. Is that the same thing or is it different?
Now that you say that, it sounds exactly like that.
Okay. All right.
You are assisted in the physical, you are assisted out of it,
Okay.
whether you know it or not. And you could be, like we're just saying, you could be so, well, I mentioned it at some point, but you can, depending on how you leave, it can be such like if it's a traumatic experience, you can be wrapped up in that. And you don't realize that you no longer in the physical, And then those beings that assist with this process have to come get you. It's like, before else, you're not even from your mind.
yeah, I think we talked about that whole concept of building is the reason that people had the body brought back to the house. The body was remain in the house until time to take it to the church for film.
Yeah.
And that was the reason.
Some like Buddhist or Eastern traditions, they say you don't fully like leave your body until like 3 or 4 days after. And that has to do with if you so identify with the physical, it's possible to you literally standing in the astral body, looking at your body, you're like, why can't I get back in? And why what is going on? It's wild. Let me go look. So, as I said, in every case, it is the shift or change in awareness, our underlying perceptual framework that allows us to interface with these realms, beings, and indeed with our own higher selves. And in truth, we do this without necessarily being conscious of it when we sleep. Talk about that. 19. Wow. Sleep in states of awareness. So we shift our conscious focus and enter into other realms of awareness and being every single night when we sleep. But because we are so attuned, generally speaking, to this physical, material way of thinking and perception, we simply block out what we experience. As we return to our waking state, we may have experienced one thing. As soon as we attune back to this physical, gone. We just don't even remember it. Because our subconscious habit is such, as we've been taught, is to ignore this information, since it doesn't have anything to do with like finding food or paying bills. Our material experience dominates our awareness, and therefore our awareness discards everything we have taught it or are taught to discard. And that's also part of the process of spiritual growth and meditation, is learning little by little to remember this stuff. If you don't remember, just with this, you cannot remember your dreams. It is because due to stress, etc., anything that captures your attention fully, physically, here, materially, it's like the momentum of the subconscious carries you super quick right back to the thing that causes you stress. And you just forget. So you can basically, before you even have a chance to allow whatever experience you experience in other realms or in just dreaming, before that even has a chance to take root, you've already blocked it off. You focus back in the physical, and now you don't remember anything to wake up. The more you observe yourself, the more you meditate, the more you retrain your subconscious to actually pay attention to what is going on within, you can remember your dreams and learn more about what they are attempting to show you. Okay. So there's different kinds of dreaming, different realms and stuff like that, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. So I'm going to switch over to my channel because in my currently most recent video about extraterrestrials and consciousness, actually, I talk about that.
So while you
Oh yeah,
pull that up, I just wanted to talk to you.
you need a break or anything? Everybody good? What? So,
I was just gonna make a note that the streaming videos that constantly scroll, the TikTok style, or even now Instagram Reels, all of that trains us away from what you're talking about.
yes.
Like it pushes your attention further and further, and it decreases your attention span and your ability to.
That's neat.
It actually short circuits your ability to function
Yes.
cognitively.
Yes.
And I just wanted to make sure I point that out because it may feel relaxing to watch TikTok or to watch Instagram Reels or even to let YouTube Shorts run, but that type of entertainment is actually very dangerous.
It's difficult to meditate.
Yeah.
Remember I said that's the divide and conquer everything, including your very perception and consciousness. Chop it up into the tiny little things and make sure every little synapse is stimulated at every single time. You can't even focus.
That's why they have blue light. The blue lights, they experimented with different colors of light coming from the computer screen. And blue light is the one that draws your attention and holds it longer. And it's the most damaging light for the brain.
Yeah.
Go to Apple in your phone and read the disclaimers about you being killed in the. That's the result of that phone. It's in your phone.
Can I send this video to Sheldon somehow?
Oh, yeah, Sheldon, this is just the first video on my channel.
And it's hard knowledge.
Yeah, Heart Knowledge 777.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna watch. Yeah, we're gonna watch a little segment of it. Just because I've already said it. Now that you know.
All in the queue. All in the queue.
Very good.
All right.
At least it was on my laptop before. But as I said, it's pretty fast to find it. So mute it. Relate and are sort of represented by what the ET phenomenon actually is. Without getting too much into the metaphysics and spirituality of it, in my own experience, I have experienced things that are on the sort of total spectrum of the ET phenomenon. within the context of dreaming and within the context of out-of-body astral travel. And those two are very much related, and it's sort of like they continue on into each other, and there's a blurry sort of line between them. So when we think of normal dreaming, that's generally speaking when our sort of minds are presenting symbolic representations of emotional and physical experiences. Generally, I would say that most of it is emotional, and when we have normal quote-unquote dreaming, we are sort of working through emotions as those experiences are presented to our conscious mind in symbolic form. So that's like not necessarily physical focused consciousness. It is sort of one step away from physical consciousness. You're asleep. Also within that sort of context of dreaming, but one step above the sort of normal dreaming are sort of other more deeply symbolic dreams. And the beginning of those are things like recurrent dreams. So if you have recurring dreams, that's because your subconscious is presenting to your conscious mind in the form of the dream symbolism something that it knows you probably need to deal with. If anybody got any questions, just stop. You can stop. And it's generally related to an emotional event that occurred to you in your life that has created some sort of knot or blockage, potentially, that if you sort of learn to decipher the symbolism of, you can then sort of heal that part of yourself and release the recurring dream so that it no longer needs to recur. So that's kind of like one step up from normal dreaming as it gets more and more directly symbolic. So one step up again from recurring dreams are extremely clear, deeply symbolic dreams that you have that you remember very clearly when you wake up. So those can be related to all kinds of things, and I'll talk about them again, but it's just another level, so to speak, or for lack of a better term, of the dream experience. And it is sort of one step closer to what you would consider an astral or out-of-body experience, but there's still like a little bit to go before you get there. But anyway, so these are basically the degrees of dream type of experiences that you can have as we progress towards the much more sort of lucid and the much more directly and obviously out-of-body or spiritual experiences that it is possible to have. And then one step above those extremely clear and deeply symbolic dreams, you would get something like a lucid dream. And lucid dreaming is kind of the transition point between the sort of spectrum of experience that we could describe as the dream experience and the spectrum of experience that we could describe as the actual true out-of-body or astral experience. It is kind of the highest form of quote-unquote normal dreaming that we have before we make the transition to sort of lucid and true awareness of the other realms of reality as we make this shift in consciousness naturally when we go to sleep. So you can do all of these shifts in consciousness without having to go to sleep via meditation. It just takes practice. So one step beyond lucid dreaming, we have the first sort of real entry into what we would generally call the astral realm. And it is at this point that a lot of ET phenomena begins to take place. I'll stop there. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it's not, as I said, you don't have to be asleep. You can do this while meditating, but it takes a while to develop that ability. But it can also happen spontaneously without even you intending for it to happen necessarily. But the point is, the more you learn how to feel around through your subconscious, in your subconscious, and the more you learn how to identify with these non-physical aspects of yourself, the better you will be able to recall these things that occur in the realms when you wake up. The better you will be able to initiate experience with those things when you want. It just takes practice. So, unconsciously, when we go to sleep, when we dream, it's kind of like this stuff is done for us a little bit. So kind of like when we are giving birth, someone helps us, either a mother or somebody. When we die, we have beings that can come assist us if we need it. It's kind of like when we fall asleep regularly, a sort of unconscious instinct takes over. And it sort of walks us through this whether we are consciously in the driver's seat or not. But there's weird things that can happen though, when we have dreams and stuff. But I mean, with respect to our ability to leave our bodies, we can do that unconsciously as well. And we are quite literally wandering around in another realm. And the beings in that realm identify us and see us and know that we are asleep. That can also happen. So, exactly. And if you sleepwalk, like for real, like you get up and walk around, that is an indication that you're probably close to being able to do this more consciously. So you don't have to sleepwalk, but when that happens, it's indicated that that's like you're sort of trying to get out of your body in the first place.
You said something that made me think. When I think about the elderly people, mostly elderly in my family who have transitioned, when I think about being with them before they die, you could almost tell when they're getting ready to leave because they begin to talk to other people who've gone. They see all of the other family members who are deceased and they start talking to them. They're looking at them. They're talking to them, and soon after that. So is that an example of them, someone coming to get them? Because I always wondered, for us, that's a sign that they're getting ready to leave, but I always wondered, well, why does that happen? I never thought about it's like a committee, a welcoming committee coming to get you to help you make that transition.
It's like too, they explain that they don't have any more boundaries. Nothing's holding.
Because they're during that process of transition, when your focus here, your connection here, it needs to let go.
Because they see less of us. They're sitting by that bed and they see those that are already gone.
She's out here. That's funny.
So I was going to share this right quick. That makes me think of this account of this doctor one time, and he had a patient, and the patient's loved one came and asked how they were progressing in terms of their health, and basically the doctor told him that he had good news, but kind of different news as well. The good news was that the patient was doing excellent from a health standpoint and improved. But the other thing was that the patient had reported that they had been speaking or spoke to, in a sense, about thinking the astral realm, etc., to loved ones, in their sleep, and then that's a common thing that was known in the hospital setting, that when that typically happens, the person transitions soon after that to exactly what was just spoken about.
Yes. And in addition, have you heard of terminal lucidity? Terminal lucidity is a term for, it comes out of like hospitals and the hospice care and stuff. If you're in the process of dying physically, there's sometimes a point where you suddenly seem like you're better.
Oh, yeah.
You become more alert, more coherent, and that is an indication that your transition is very close. And that's part of the process of, so you can say bye before you leave. And that's like a stage in the process of dying. When it happens, there goes smooth. As opposed to driving down the road one night and suddenly you wake up and you turn around and you're like, what? So has anyone heard the term lucid dream before? You can teach yourself to do that, and then you teach yourself to do all this stuff. But that is a stage in development of learning how to do this. And so, like the normal dreams, quote unquote, like you don't have to leave your body necessarily when you do this. There is a sort of space all to yourself, and that's what I mean by the normal sort of dream space before you make that transition truly out of your immediate experience. So you can feel around for yourself. You can see what is going on in yourself in its symbolic representation as you learn to lucid dream, as you learn to remember your dreams and stuff like that. And you can deal with stuff in yourself. If you have traumatic memories, you can face them. in dream and release what that energy is. It takes practice to do this, of course. I myself, I can't do this on command. I've done this spontaneously. But like what I said, when I've been learning to meditate more consistently in the last few months, it's starting to go. And now is the time period that it needs to be said much more.
So when, another look at us, a person who's transitioning over a period of days in our time, are they in that phase where they're talking to ancestors on that side, but they're still waiting for family members on this side to say goodbye to you?
It's possible, yeah.
And do people transition relationships that way? I had an experience 3 months ago. My uncle passed away. He was uncle by marriage. Me and my aunt were married 61 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm prepared to drive to Virginia to his funeral. Well, 2 days later, my aunt, his wife, she passed away unexpectedly. And so then we pushed it back to have a double funeral. But I always thought that, it felt like in that period of time, just talking to their daughter, and that there was like some different communication going back and forth between the two of them. And then ultimately we ended up having the first time in my life I went to a double funeral. It all happened in 2 days apart.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We've all heard the stories where husband dies, wife dies 2 days later.
Yeah. In Cologne, when I passed my half back there, 3 hours later, his wife died.
Yeah.
They called me and told me he was dead. 3 hours later, they called me and told me she was dead. He died too.
When that bond is so strong,
Yeah, she told me she was not going to leave me.
if you might not even be conscious of it, but in a deep place of your subconscious, you tell yourself, no, I want to be done. You will be. Yeah.
And as she go to your point, my mom, it's on Friday. And I said, Mom, come on. We're fine. We're okay. You don't have to stay. And she says, well, no, the sister died. She said, Dad said she's coming over Sunday. And I said, okay. When Dad walked in her room, Keisha was already there. When Dad walked in her room, she turned around and spoke to her. They took her last breath, just like that. And that's when that red bird was sitting in the tree every day. And when she took her last breath, that bird flew away and lived there for quite a long time. But that bird never came back. Mm-hmm. But she waited to see my sister before she died. And most people don't believe it because we have gotten too intellectual to embrace spirituality. It would make sense for us to have been created in a divine manner and have no say-so or control or input into how we exit our body. It just doesn't make sense not to be able to do that. And the only reason that we can't is because you believe we can.
I think it's twofold, though. I think it's intellectual and religion.
I agree.
Because my dad went to church periodically, but he didn't stay, quote unquote, in the church every time the doors open. He was not considered a church goer. But in his transitioning, I learned more about spirituality from watching him and how he lived those last days and the day I'm going to die is Saturday. Get these people here. He planned everything from all the way down to how he wanted everything to be and let us know which day. And he left on Saturday, just like he told us he was going to do. And got everybody together on Wednesday because if you want to see me now, because by Saturday I'm going to be gone step by step. And I'm like, now the church would say he should not have been able to do any of those things because he was not a religious man. But that's why I say I don't know if it's intellect or religion or a fraction of both. But he would say they do that because he wasn't in church.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I remember there's a story. I used to work with somebody in college, just like a college job or whatever. And he told me his dad used to go to happy hour at the bar certain time every single day. But towards the end of his life, his dad was in a coma. And he said he was in a coma for a while on the hour that happy hour started.
It's just about going to listen.
I know. Yep. We'll take a break pretty soon, right before we start this next section, but. So, lucid dreams, all these things are degrees of awareness, stages in awareness as we approach the true sort of astral or non-physical realm that is next to this one, quote unquote. So, and talk more about that. You've spent any time researching anything spiritual, you've definitely heard of astral travel. As I mentioned, it's something we do subconsciously, and it is through the process of spiritual growth, through learning how to meditate and how to expand our awareness, we re-interface with these non-physical aspects of self or reality. We can learn to become conscious of what we've been unconscious of for so long. And this is the process by which spiritual childhood comes to its end. You begin to become conscious, just like when you're a kid. Ideally, you are sheltered from things you should not experience as a kid. At some point, this is what it is. Now you have to learn how to deal with it. Same thing. We have these sort of unconscious experiences, but we can learn to be conscious of them and learn what this really means. Deep meditation is kind of like a conscious sleeping. That's pretty much the whole trick. And it is the gateway to lucid dreaming, astral travel, etc., and indeed many other experiences. So when we talk about seeing apparitions, I mentioned I saw my grandmother. I was asleep, but I was half awake enough to be perceptive of that other realm, because I was in a different state of consciousness. When we talk about seeing these things, or other experiences like that, as being showing up around your house for your cameras, these are relatively quick and fleeting perceptions of this other plane of reality that is next to this. The key phrase that you can remember as it pertains to learning how to leave your body or learning how to do this deep meditation, the key phrase is body asleep, mind awake. But generally, when we go to sleep, everything is still, we go unconscious. No, because that's kind of what we're taught, we're tired, we don't want to deal with none of that. If you want to learn how to experience these things, you learn how to keep your mind awake as you fall asleep. And it's so, everyone heard the term sleep paralysis? Or it used to be called hag is riding you, or whatever the weird terms that we all have for it. Sleep paralysis, where you feel like you can't move, is because you're in a transitionary state. Your body is, this happens naturally, like your body is literally paralyzed, and then while you're dreaming, you're like flailing around. But if you're still conscious during this process, that's when that occurs. That is it's because it's part of the transition. You are exiting the body. Same thing can happen when you are dying. But you can learn how to do it now. So sleep paralysis, it can be potentially scary because you don't necessarily know what's going on, especially if it's spontaneous. And then because you're in that, you're beginning to enter that dream space, you begin to potentially see the things that are contained within your subconscious that you didn't even know about. So when people are in sleep paralysis, sometimes they see, like, for lack of a better term, demons. That's because it's a projection of you. It is fear, anxiety, etc., given physical form, symbolic form, in the realm that allows for those kinds of experiences, so that you can learn how to deal with that feeling within yourself. And when it happens, when you don't know that that's what's going on, it's scary as hell for some people. All of this is the way mind works. The form that we see is, all of this form, the structure is a holographic symbol of a principle of spirit, of vibration and energy.
But with sleep paralysis, the thing that was always a little scary to me, I would be between the dream state and awake, and I could feel myself going under. Mm-hmm. It's like something was pulling me under, and I knew I was going into the state where I could not move. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want that state. Yeah. So I tried to fight it. I tried to turn, or move, or make myself do something. And if you stop, you go right back into it, and then you go under. And now you're like, okay, I'm dreaming, but I know I need to move in this dream. Yeah. And I need to move and turn over so I can break this and you're fighting the whole time. I never could. Are we supposed to relax in that? Because I never relaxed.
Fighting hard.
That means that you were not a real sleep. You were not asleep.
Because I could feel it.
Really good though.
I could feel it happening, and it's pulling me up because I'm not totally asleep now. And I wake up enough to know something's getting ready to happen.
Yeah.
And now I feel it happening. I'm like, oh, I think I
How
want
many
this.
of you experience sleep at home? I
I'm glad you explained that because I thought that every time it happened.
relaxing. You go sleep.
What about that it would become so deep in my house? It says, I'm gonna say, it's a big question, but I
Yes.
just denied.
I was saying, what about when you asleep and you dream this and you fall off the cliff and wake up before you hit the bottom?
Yeah.
That is
That feeling of falling is often associated with the process of exiting or returning to the body. So it's literally like you're or
So maybe she went someplace and she wasn't going back time, so she tried.
They were like, all right.
I was asking you that. See, what I associated it with, I told you guys that the entities lived in my old house with me.
Mhm.
I thought they were holding me down because it hasn't happened in this house.
Yeah.
And I was always just assuming once I figured out that they were there and what they were, and because it didn't happen after they left, I didn't have that anymore.
I see.
So maybe their
It is-
entity was sending me somewhere.
Yeah.
Their energy was sending me somewhere.
That's the same person.
No, I'm not. But now the energy is here on the outside. Don't ring the doorbell.
It's lights and not dark.
That's true.
So
That's true.
You dance in the rain. Come on.
Too. But it make those spirals and
Kathy, was someone still speaking?
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you seen them?
Oh, hang on.
they're possible. We have decided that we thought since we're only black people over here, that somebody was doing something, at first, and like, but maybe it's because we are the black people. It's our energy. I don't know. I don't know.
you thought the road people go get the colors.
I know what. I still don't know what it is.
But you will know, because it's coming back. And then you're gonna ask him what he wants.
They let me know yesterday it's here. It's probably in the meeting right now
And
with us.
Because he can't
You can-
hear everything.
And you can feel these things. And I had an experience in high school involving a Ouija board where it was like, and it was in a forest too in Africa, in a dark ancient forest or whatever. We had experiences where his friend brought this thing. In his house, he would have experiences with like things being moved and stuff. Because he had it was like a book collection that was like the physical handwritten notes of somebody. So apparently they were still interested in that. But anyway, he brought this thing into the forest and he did it. We were like, all right, let's do it. I was like, all right, fine. And we would ask questions, and depending on the question he asked, a couple of times there were monkeys around us in the forest. He would say the thing, and every single monkey at the same time. Everything. We would have an experience where there was like a ball of cold that was like moving around. You could put your hand in it, and your hand was 10 degrees colder, and you could pull it out. And in that group of people started seeing stuff. I didn't see it. But it's all has to do with the way these realms interact with this one, and that's part and parcel of when we get into the extraterrestrial thing. We have all these freaky experiences. But anyway,
We ended up throwing our Ouija board away because we decided to leave.
Have you noticed that every single thing that connects us to the other realm is evil?
Right.
Demonic.
And we're scared.
And we said we threw it away.
now I will say that given the structure of the realms or whatever, if you use a Ouija board, you're more likely to get something that is not of a very high vibration. Anything that stays around here for that long wants to be, you're not supposed to stay here.
Yeah.
So I'll put that out there. So we'll
Yes.
yeah, Sheldon.
Go ahead, Sheldon.
Well, y'all needed to finish because what I was speaking towards, and not necessarily to Kat, it was before y'all got on the situation like with Kathy, but when Nick mentioned facing or dealing with the monsters and things like that, when with lucid dreaming and just dreaming in general, period. And then he was talking about being afraid of it. The way to actually address that is to bravely not run from it, but face it and say, what am I here to learn? What are you here to teach me? But boldly, and it is from that place that thing is transitioning and a shift. I don't want to say so much of a healing, but at that particular point, that is when, for lack of better words, the wisdom of the growth is allowed to happen. The shift is able to happen. A lot of times, the monster is just something. It is a manifestation, in a sense, of what the person is actually dealing with and actually needs to address. And so it presents itself in a sense of a monster, just like the things that we're dealing with present itself in this common reality that all of us are familiar with, and we deal with those things in the same way. Okay.
Thank you. And that is 100% correct. That is, when they teach you how to astral travel, they say, no, you must be fearless. Because there is a threshold that you must pass that sort of, it keeps all the riffraff out.
It's like initiation.
Exactly, yeah. You potentially could see some scary stuff, but if you face it and you tell it, get out of here, I don't need you, then now you see it. And that's similar to the concept of seeing these scary things while you're in sleep paralysis. Because as part of the process of learning how to leave your body, you go through that stage. Yeah. Okay.
Let me ask you about.
Yeah.
We're going back to the astral projection, travel.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that turned me off of this years and years ago is I had a professor in college who did that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he told us that if anyone came in the room and moved your body in any way you could not re-enter, that you had to go back in the way you came out. That was more than I was willing to deal with.
Yes.
And in my mind, now that you say that, I guess I got stuck there because I thought, I don't want to do that. Because even though I live alone, what if my hand falls off the bed? Now I can't get back in my body. So
all kinds of fearful stuff about that out there, including like if you astral travel, there's something called the silver cord that connects your astral body to physical. You'll get cut and then that's when you die. If your body moves, you won't be able to get back in. None of that stuff is.
That's not necessarily true.
It's not necessarily true at all.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I did prosthetic and when I did it, my body was usually never the same spot.
Yeah.
When I came to children.
It is. There is a thing like.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. If you do it, let's see. So first of all, you do this. Not every night, but you do this when you sleep, regardless of whether you're aware of it or not. And we sleep all over the place sometimes. So, like, no, nothing prevents you from getting back in. The only thing that can prevent you from doing stuff is the fear itself. Like, if you are consciously traveling outside your body, if you learn how to do that, I do believe there is situations where you can see your body and you try to get back in and you can't. But that's because you don't need to worry about it. If you literally, in the astral state, just relax and fall asleep right back. There's nothing that could.
Don't come back.
There's nothing that could possess your body while you are away from it. There's nothing that could prevent you from getting back into it. There's nothing that will grab you in your astral form or kill you or whatever. These things are, I won't say impossible, but the chance of you, basically impossible. The chance of you running into something that could do that, even if that thing really exists, is none. Like, basically.
Think about it. Spirit is not shape.
True.
Energy is not shape.
Yeah, that's true. And that's exactly what's happening when you get back to the body. It's a radio frequency of just being attuned back to where the original station was. Nothing else can fill that space because it's perfectly designed for your spirit. This vehicle is for you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So you know what's up. You know how to put your name on it.
Thanks.
What about you mentioned falling off a building or falling off wherever.
Yeah.
What about jumping off and surviving?
Girl, you some
It is just
No. I've had a dream where I jumped off like a 10-story building, landed on the ground, and then went about my business.
Think about what that's trying to teach you. You don't have to be afraid at all.
I've never known anybody to jump and reach the mouth.
But you know, you have
That's what I'm saying. I've never.
when you were meditating, the vision when you saw all these canyons and mountains.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you were
flying.
Yeah. So you like to fly, girl.
But you know, this is really.
No, but in real life, I have to back away from the rail
Oh,
because
yeah.
I might jump.
That's part of, that's like, that's a psychological.
Yeah.
This is teaching us to block all of those things that
Yeah.
fear has taught us about the spiritual world and our understanding of what we thought we knew.
Well,
We're
earlier,
laughing about it and joking, but it's very serious.
we are being right now. What we are learning is how to be God, what to expect. So that when we are doing these things, when they appear, you're not apprehensive about it.
Yeah. In Kemet, in the process of initiation, this is what they teach you.
Yeah.
They first thing they do, like, you cannot have fear. Fear is it prevents you from doing everything.
But by the time you got there, because they started when you were a child,
Yeah.
and by the time you got to this space, you weren't afraid of anything
No.
anyway.
Yeah.
Because see, the other part of it is that everybody was taught that. They had to be chosen by the elders in order for them to do, because the elders, this is how I learned it, that the elders see in that child that is about to be birthed an ancestor that is returning in that child, and it has work to do. And that is when that child get the not necessarily at an early age initiated, but that is when that child goes through what they call the quest,
Vision quest.
the vision quest. That's when they go through that vision quest, and when they make it through it and get back, they've seen all kinds of stuff, but they don't relate it to anyone in terms of talking about it, except their elders.
And isn't that in the Robert Silver book you had us read?
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing.
What's the name of the book?
Oh, the Shell Bigfoot.
The Spirit of Intimacy. They talked about, was it like age 12 or something? They brought you in a sense of community.
Yeah.
You were training.
Right.
And I don't remember what, George, you'd have to tell me the significance of age 12. But
That's
I read
the
that.
beginning of the end of childhood.
Yeah.
That's the bar mitzvah. As we learn what it means to become an adult.
Well, females are 12 and boys are 13. Right. So that means that
Women mature.
women mature faster. Yeah. So but it's interesting to understand. I'm going to make a statement.